What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Dr. Funk Live podcast. Thank you guys so much for subscribing on YouTube, iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, Podbay FM. Thank you guys also for donating if you choose. Today we have an amazingly wonderful guest. It'll be the one and only Michael B. Michael Bland of the MPG, Soul Asylum, Dr. Mambo's Combo, and so much more. You guys are in for a real treat that are joining us live and for listening and watching on the playback. It's going to be a really, really great, fun show. I'm looking forward to it. I had to pull this one out from 1993, Universal Amphitheater, which isn't around anymore. Actually, my first show, so my first concert shirt that I got from the Act One tour, had to make sure to pull this one on. It's interesting because I was discussing that earlier. Good, and just remember, guys, we're going to be taking your questions throughout the show. We may be missing it just because I don't want to interrupt and do it, but ask again if we haven't gotten to it, but that's just how we're going to roll with it tonight. Without further ado, let me get our special guest of honor up in here. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Michael B.
Hello.
Michael Bland, what's going on, man?
Not a whole lot. Just sitting here in Eden Prairie, Minnesota. I was peeling some pearl onions a little bit earlier.
Oh no.
Yeah.
How's the weather over there this time of year? Because over here it's been ridiculously hot in California.
Well, today it's very humid outside. And I don't like that.
No, I'm with you.
In the house, waiting for it to recede, whichever comes first. I start up rehearsal with Soul Asylum next week for a gig we have in September, so I'm going to have to get out there in it. And
awesome.
It'll calm down by then. Sorry.
Awesome. Now, where is this gig going to take place in September?
It's supposed to be in Somerset, Wisconsin, on September 26th.
Okay.
And I mean, with the COVID and everything, we got to be real strenuous about details like, disinfectant and masks and gloves and I don't know if you noticed, but in the Midwest, a lot of people have been real laid back about spreading germs and whatnot. And I mean, I'd be lying if I said I'm not cautiously optimistic that it'll go all right. I mean, but it's real out there. Anybody who says COVID-19 is a hoax, I don't know what to tell you. I know people who have had it. I know my co-host on my show, Music Politics, Dan Spiffy Newman, he was in the hospital for 23 days. 11 of them, he was intubated. He was in an induced coma. So you can't tell me COVID's not real. I don't care who you are. I was one of a few people who helped him keep his sanity while he was in the hospital. So
yeah,
I know what it's about, and I'm not playing around with nobody about it.
And your show, it air. You guys do it live on Tuesday night, right?
Tuesday nights, it's 7:00 Central Standard Time. Yeah, Andre Simone, he's probably been a guest on your show, I'm imagining. Have you had Andre? Yeah, he's been to our show. Sonny made a brief appearance a couple weeks ago. So that people drop in, but it's not like, it's not it's probably a little more formal than your situation. And I'm not conflating or comparing the two. I'm just saying, like, we have a lot of scientific people and people involved in civics, in government that come on the show. And so, not so much of it's not so much a vehicle for enjoyment as it is talking about like kind of hard stuff to discuss in this day and age.
Absolutely.
But we feel like we're doing a service, and we're going to keep on with it for a little while until it kills itself out of obsolescence, I suppose.
Well, hopefully it's going to go on for a while, because sometimes we need to have conversations like that for sure.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah. Now, this is it. We'll go for the first question. Although what I want to ask first is, when did you first start getting into drumming and becoming a drummer? Is it something that you wanted to do from a little kid, or how did it come to be? Before we start getting to the first questions from the audience.
It was. I mean, music has been a part of my life as long as from the moment I got into this world. Music was with me. It's been my one constant friend and ally throughout. I'm 51. I think I'll be 52 next March. It was always calling my life. We had a piano. My father played in church. My sisters all learned how to play. Some of them played in church. My mom even played a little bit. But it's not uncommon for that to happen in a black household. I don't know what happens otherwise, but I can only speak from my own experience. And those who a lot of black musicians start out in church, and then they augment their career and they take steps out into the secular world, and then they hopefully flourish. But I guess I would have to say my dad got me a kit when I was 9. But I couldn't keep it unless I took lessons. So he found me an instructor. His name is Floyd Thompson. He's still alive, still hanging out in Minnesota part of the time, but he goes to Florida when it gets too cold. And he taught a lot of great drummers from Minneapolis. Gordy Knutson is one of my I guess I would say peers, although Gordy was on the scene way before I even really got out. So, but Gordy did a lot of recording with, let's see, if you ever heard of a guy named Ben Sidran from Wisconsin, or he actually has been drumming with Steve Miller for like 20 years now. So Gordy is a brilliant, brilliant drummer. And we have a lot of similar viewpoints on it, and conceptually also. Like we play some things we do kind of the same, but he really was one of the dudes who paved the way for me to get in there and start swinging. Someone who literally paved the way and got me started swinging was Bobby Vandell, who played with Alexander O'Neill. He played with the Jesse Johnson Review, and he was the original drummer in Dr. Mambo's Compo. He's the one who encouraged me to come down there and start sitting in with the band. And then he went away. I think he went to Los Angeles, or he went on tour with Alexander O'Neill, and he asked me to cover for him. And during that time, the band and I got to be very fond of one another, and it must have been Bobby's time in life to move on to bigger, better things, so that I had a place to hone my craft, which is also the place where I met Prince eventually, which would have been in late 1988, after the Love Sexy show.
And that's another thing that's the first question that someone's going to have. I'm going to put that up. Well, that's not that one. We're going to go into it. Here it is. And we'll go to that one as well. Question for Michael. Why do you think Prince chose him to be the drummer? We can go back to 88 and that experience, but.
Right. I mean, I guess I never asked him why. I was just focused on being sufficient in my duties. I think I wanted to just be a professional. It was what I had been working towards as a musician without realizing it. But whatever he saw or whatever he felt, he only, I don't know. I think the only time we talked about it was, he's like, you're so young to be so good, and you're only going to get better, So I'm sure that he felt, my feeling is that he felt that I could learn and grow, and that, I mean, at 19, that's my comprehension of what music was and what it could do has always been a little bit advanced. I have perfect pitch. I don't know why, but I understand music on a level that a lot of people do not. I don't know why God chose to put that in me, but he also chose to put that in Sonny Thompson. So once he combined Sonny's force with mine, he had a very powerful nucleus, which is why we appeared several times after we had been fired and everything, we resurfaced on some records and did some things because we developed a sort of shorthand way of working together. And if he needed to do something on impulse, often he'd call me and Sonny. And I'd say the last session that I did for him was probably 2 months before he passed away.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Can you elaborate more on that? Just because I don't think too many people knew that your last session was that close to his passing. If you can.
Yeah, I didn't know a whole lot about what was happening at the time. As a matter of fact, Mono Neon was playing bass, but he was in the control room. I never even saw him or spoke to him. We just started recording, and he started playing. Okay, I wonder who that is. Okay, great. And Adrian Crutchfield was also there, and Prince. It was just the four of us. Prince was engineering himself that day, and it's it was an interesting experience, but it was not focused in a way where I felt like I knew what was happening. And I think he realized that. I don't think that it was a successful venture that day, and part of it was they had things set up in a very specific way. In the drums were set up there. Kirk had been recording with them, and it was set up for Kirk to play, and they were doing something kind of different. So it was difficult for me to acclimate and get around and play things comfortably. And also, Prince was changing everything. He was trying a lot of things, and nothing was really working. I was like, maybe it's me, But I'm just like, hey, maybe you should probably. He said, well, Kirk's used to playing that kit. I'm like, yeah, well, you should do what works. And he gave me a copy of Hit and Run Volume 2, I think, and that was the last time I saw him. While he was talking to me, he looked gaunt, more so than usual, thin, like he had maybe been in the studio so much that he had not been taking care of himself or sleeping. But it didn't dawn on me until the day I heard that he passed that maybe he was in a completely different space. I just thought, well, he gets like that. He gets thin and he gets focused, and he, that's just his MO. Prince, it was like he lived in the studio, but it was not being overworked. I don't believe it was him being overworked. I really think that something else may have been happening on the inside. I guess I probably shouldn't even speculate. But irrespective of what may or may not be, I in my mind, I've gone back over that moment many times to see if there was something there that I didn't pick up on. And I can't qualifiably say that. I can't say that. I would be bearing false witness if I said I could see it in his eyes. He would have. No, it only occurred to me after the fact, and then I was like, how come did I see it? Was I meant to see what was happening? I was not conscious or aware on that level in that moment. So I don't even know what I'm saying about it right now, except that it was a shock. It's still now. It's like it don't feel like the right thing happened to me.
And that's the perception of it. And that was probably with the Black is the New Black sessions, what you were describing it as well.
Could be. It was an instrumental jazz sort of oriented situation. Is that what that is?
Right. That's what they were doing. And then for tracks like Rough Enough and whatnot. But yes, that was for Black is the New Black, because with Adrian being involved and Mono Neon being involved as well.
Okay.
So that's very cool.
I don't really I don't keep up so much. I'm on.
You drop a lot of knowledge, so I'm glad to drop a little bit of a morsel of information.
Like that. No, hey, listen, whatever you can teach or tell me, I'm interested in it.
Cool. Mm-hmm. And my first viewing of you was on, and I don't know how well this went over with Prince or if you remember it, but was a show long before TMZ, A Current Affair, where they went into bunkers and they interviewed you to talk about Prince and whatnot. Now, did he get back to Prince about that? Did he go, hey, Michael, when it comes to stuff like that, can you not do it? Or, it didn't matter?
I don't remember him ever doing that to me. Okay. But I mean, a lot of people don't know. A lot of interviews that happened in the early to mid 90s, especially once Levi sort of retired from the situation, I had sort of had to take up the slack, and people would call, ask him for interviews, and he'd tell him to talk to Michael. Like, I began being kind of the spokesperson, and I mean, you kind of get a sense for what's okay to say and what's not to say, and I just did what I could not to mess up. I tried to say the right thing and not the wrong thing.
It can get that way with him, especially. Do you even remember like the first track that you not even played live but recorded with him? Do you remember that?
The Grand Progression, yes.
Oh.
His father was in the studio that day. I think it was like a Saturday. And he just called me in for a session, and I hadn't been in the studio yet. I had been there and visited the sound stage. I'd seen the atrium and all of that, but I hadn't been in the studio. And that was the first day. It was like early afternoon on a Saturday. His father was in the studio with him, and he said, I want my father to meet you. And that in and of itself was what tripped me out. I'm like, oh, wow, okay. Because I knew how I had a sense and knew what kind of respect he had for his father as a musician, and they had collaborated on many songs. I tried to follow what was happening on the track, but it was difficult to figure out what was going on. And I stopped at some point during the first take, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble figuring out what's happening here. Because there were instruments coming in and going out, and it sounded like very spare. It sounded like a band kind of learning a song. And I said, it seems, and I said as much. I said, it sounds like something spontaneous is happening. Well, he says, oh, yes. Well, this song is for a movie, and in the movie, that's what's happening. So play it that way. And that's what I did. And I still left the studio with a question mark in my head. I'm like, whoa, what did I just do? And but some point during that session, I got up. I said, I have to go. I have to use the bathroom. Could you excuse me for a minute? Oh, sure. And I walked all over, and it was on a Saturday, so there was no staff. So I'm like, well, where's the bathroom? Where So I looked around, and I went upstairs. And I walked through this stained glass door, and okay, all right. And I don't know why I wasn't more mindful of where I was going, but I ended up in the apartment part of Prince's office. And I'm standing at the commode, and I'm looking around at all these, frilly, custom-made things, and it hits me. I'm like, I'm in Prince's personal bathroom. And so I flushed and washed my hands and got out of there as quick as I could. I was like, oh, all right. And I don't know if he knows that ever happened or not, but that was so strange. I was so kind of just, I gotta pee, and I just kept walking. I never saw an obvious place to go. So that's the first time I think I've ever told that story in public.
Awesome. The Grand Progression.
That was it. It was supposed to be in Graffiti Bridge, but he decided he liked Still Would Stand All Time better. So that's what
makes sense.
Yeah,
it's close to it. Here's another question we're going to have, and of course, we're going to jump around to different time periods or not. But Prince is also a good drummer. What did you admire about Prince's drumming skills?
Oh, yeah, that is what they meant, isn't it? He was very creative. He'd play things in a way that were informative of the great Dave Garibaldi, who's the drummer from Tower of Power. I know that he and Morris were big fans of Tower of Power when they were younger, and Garibaldi influenced their style. I mean, even the drum program on 7779311, I think that the factory preset of it was called Garibaldi 1 or something like that. Like that was some kind of attempt. I know that Prince modified the pattern and he did some different things with it, but it's this, I guess you call it independence. Like he's very good at playing counter rhythms with his limbs. Like one thing would be doing this and the other thing would be doing that, and it just seemed to flow naturally for him. And sometimes he would ask me to do things that I didn't immediately understand, but I always took a swing at it after I got over my nerves. I was very nervous about messing up. I don't like to make mistakes. I never have, even since I was a kid. With music, I was already like, I making mistakes is not something I want to do. So I was usually a very prepared musician, but you can't prepare for the moment, just a spontaneous moment where somebody's asking you to step outside of what you normally do and try something completely alien to your understanding. So he was good at that. He was good at throwing me curveballs. But as we worked more and more together, as you would expect, a lot of kinetic energy can build up between musicians, and where you kind of know what they're asking for. You get enough information to go on, and you can get closer to the target straight away. But early on, he would always say, he'd ask for something, and I'd pause, and he'd say, "Michael, put your hands down. Just play." He's like, you can't find the street till you find the city. Like you explore. You have to get into it to see where you're at. You have to lose yourself before you can find yourself. And that was very, very valuable information for me. I've used it to this day in my career.
Wise.
Yeah.
Wise. Now it comes to drumming skills. An interesting question that we had beforehand. The drum intro to Shh is iconic, especially the way you play it. Have you ever seen Prince attempt to play it himself?
No. It's funny because I don't know how deep to get, man. I mean, first off, we had the original version of Shh did it come out on Tevin Campbell's I'm Ready record, or did it not? I'm not sure if it appeared. It did. Yes. And what happened was we had the NBA party in '93, and Tevin was Prince was expecting everybody was going to sit in. So we prepared Shush, Break It Down, and Tevin, I think, said, "I want to sing Can We Talk?" And we didn't know that one. So we knew that Prince was going to be singing it probably at the party. So we were playing, and he was like, "This is boring. We need to put some breaks in this. We need to get this amped up." So that's what happened. It's like he started playing these punches. He's like, "Fill that up. Put some stuff in there." We hadn't recorded it like this, mind you. This was an experiment taking place the day before, and
right.
That live version still irks me a little bit because I hadn't figured out what I was really trying to say. So I was happy that we got a second chance to record it for the Gold Experience record, because by that time we had been out and I think we had played it several times by then. So my mind was clear. I knew what I was trying to get out of the composition, like what it needed for me to make it something more spectacular. And so I'm glad that the version on the Gold Experience came out, because that's really what I meant.
Okay.
Yeah.
That doesn't take anything away from that beautiful experience, the NBA All-Star Game weekend, and that version of it, which was some people's first time hearing it, just like with Days of Wild and a lot of those other songs that came out.
Mm-hmm.
And Days of Wild being the track that it is and how funky it is, like just in these songs, you had so many songs during that time period, and then it wouldn't even make it onto the Gold Experience. Was that something that you wish did make it on there? Although the live version is far superior than the studio version. No disrespect.
Well, here's what happened: is that we heard the original version, and it was a head scratcher for us. It was like, I don't understand this. And it must have got back to Prince, because we started working on it like the very next day after we were kind of like, I don't get it. So we worked on it in rehearsal, and it became a fan favorite. And I think that was Lenny Kravitz's favorite Prince song around that time. Because he'd come to the gig, y'all playing Days of Wild tonight? Lenny, Prince plays what he wants, man. We don't know. And we get into it. He'd be back there with them troglodyte boots, just grooving to it. So, yeah, I don't know. It's there is a version that came out on Crystal Ball, right?
Yes, a live version. Yes, edited from a Paisley Park jam, but yes, it is on there.
Okay.
But that's the version that we love, and of course, the Beautiful Experience version. We can understand why, if it was going to be that studio version that would have been on the Gold Experience, maybe it's good it was left out.
I don't know. To me, it was as the original track was. I just couldn't. I didn't understand what was happening.
Right. With the sample of Peep the Technique and all that other stuff, the live version just far superior in so many different ways.
We got strong. I mean, some songs don't translate in the studio, and vice versa. I mean, I'm actually going through that with Soul Asylum right now. We're still learning more music off of our new album, which is called Hurry Up and Wait, and it's out if anybody wants to buy it. I think it's a great record. It's the highest charting Soul Asylum record since the mid-'90s. So I think we did a stellar job at bringing the band back in fine form. But certain songs you play live, and it's like, wait a minute. It's like they just don't always translate the right way.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it came to, did he ever try to do it himself at all when it came to that solo or intro to it that you saw? Okay.
It's funny because I had a flashback. I saw that question come up, and I had pause about responding to it. But during the rehearsals for the Nude tour, Miko and Levi, at one point, they were like, man, you a bad dude, man. Let me tell you something. I don't remember which one said it, but they were like, man, Prince used to always go behind the drums messing with Sheila. Get up, It's like, we ain't seen him go back behind the drums one time. So I guess it was that's some evidence of how he felt about it. And also, sometimes he would record drums to songs before I get there, or I remember a couple of songs he recorded by himself, and then he'd call me in to re-record, and he'd be upset about it. He's like, I don't even like my own drumming anymore. You hanging around, and okay, I'll be in the atrium if you need me. So that was his way of conveying a level of respect. But I mean, he meant it as a compliment in the highest order. I didn't really believe that, but I did have something that he wanted access to. I mean, that's why we were all there. We had something that he wanted, that he felt he could use. Yeah.
Now, definitely, like, when it came to the MPG, we constantly hear from other members that it was one of his favorite bands. You guys would have so much fun. Of course, we hear that during Billy Jack Bitch, and towards the end of it, you hear him go, "Man, y'all some type motherfucker."
That's Sonny saying that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is Sonny.
He would talk that night. Yeah. And I remember Prince played that song for George Clinton, And George, what? Is that big old greasy drummer you got back there? Man, he's killing it. Yeah. Like George was just kind of all about it. It was funny. I've run into him a few times over the years. He was always just the nicest guy to me. And he tried to actually Gary Scheider tried to hijack me and Sonny for P-Funk one night at Bunkers, and like he took our numbers and our information. He had a young lady who did that for him. Listen, y'all need to come on and get on the mothership. Now it was in Bunker's kitchen, and I like Gary. I mean, what? What are we gonna do on the mothership, man? I mean, it just that scene is just. I mean, that P-Funk scene is just too kinky for me. That's all I can say about it. And I think Sonny, it probably felt the same, but he probably wouldn't admit it. But it was like, we ain't that freaky.
George is freaky, and the mothership is quite freaky. At least he wasn't like, "Yo, man, we gotta get you in the diaper."
Exactly. I mean, I mean, I've never been a Funketeer, but I did play. I did play one time with Parliament Funkadelic at the Glam Slam. Actually, it was Tony Thomas had double booked himself, or he had to go to Japan or something, and they needed somebody to cover. Like, well, we need to get somebody who's already going to be in Minneapolis, and they tracked me down to Doug Nelson's apartment. I don't know how they knew I was there, but they called and said, George Clinton wants you to perform with him next Thursday. They're going to FedEx a cassette, and of course the cassette was like a cassette of like Lige Curry playing bass, and Dennis Chambers on the drums. So I'm just like, man, how am I even going to touch that? So I had about 5 days of intense listening time because I'm not a Funketeer. I don't know that music back and forth. Some people who don't even play instruments know P-Funk better than I know P-Funk. They sing along and know when the arrangement, here's where the guitar comes in with. And I was asking Blackbird McKnight at the sound check. I said, when does it flip back over on Knee Deep from that vamp? He was like, I'm not sure, man. It just kind of happened in the spot. I mean, you just have to, I mean, if I think of it, I'll let you know. But that's all he gave me. So on the gig, he nodded to me like 2 bars before we got there. He's like, and so I didn't miss it. But Eric Leeds and Atlanta Bliss played horns on that gig. And Lil Roger Troutman played keyboards a little bit. And, oh, man, it was incredible. It was
sounds amazing.
Yeah, it was an experience, man. Really. But
now,
man, a drummer playing with y'all got to be in shape. 3 hours, 3.5. Like, man, the song just went on forever. At soundcheck, we played Night of the Thumposaurus people for probably a half an hour.
Wow, just having it go on. That's
how they like it.
For sure. And now, speaking of costumes, someone had this one. Did you like wearing the creative costumes with the hats?
Actually, that's funny how that happened. When Prince met me, I had a hat on that I bought at a place called Global Village on the West Bank of the university. And I had gotten into buying these kind of sort of African hats like Tams and whatnot. And so when he met me, he said, "I like your hat." I said, "Oh, thanks." He said, "Is that your thing?" I said, "Not really. I mean, it's just kind of, it's like, it's a good look for you." And in between him saying that and Miko Weaver saying, "Man, you need to make it like this tall, like Jerome Braley, man, from Parliament Funkadelic. You need your hat like this big." And the wardrobe department that week started just production on these hats. And then, they took kind of my style, what I was wearing in the street, and just kind of magnified it to like comic book level. That's really what happened. So that's the story of that.
I would just imagine it would get hot.
It's hot. I couldn't really, none of that. And also getting in the limo, I had to kind of, move my neck. But yeah, I mean, it was fun for a while, but I got to the point where I was like, oh man, I mean, because if you wear hats that often, your hair suffers. Your hair doesn't grow the same kind of way. It's not getting any light. It's humid under there. It's not a good situation. So at some point, I don't remember, but T-Bird, Tanya, who was Prince's hairdresser at the time, she was like, "You got a lot of hair. What you want me to do with this?" I said, "I don't know, T-Bird. I mean, it just sits underneath." Said, well, what if we give it a little style? And she went to work on it, and she was like, "Oh, I like this." I said, "Let's let Prince see it." And so we let Prince see it, and then I got to have hair for the last 2 years or so, two and a half maybe.
At least Tanya made sure to cut your hair and have Prince see it afterwards, or else it may have been what happened with Morris, to where he was like, "No, let me give you a haircut."
Oh, I'm not even sure what you're referring to at this point.
Well, Morris talked about how he wanted to like cut his hair and whatnot, and he's like, "All right, let me shave your head," and that's how it happened during Days of Wild, live at Paisley Park. That version of it was Morris coming to him and letting him know he wanted to cut his hair, and he's like, "I'll cut your hair for you." And that's something that Brown Mark told him you shouldn't have him do. So maybe it was a good idea that Tanya was cutting your hair first before showing it to Prince, or else you may have been getting a cut.
I understand, but most likely what would have happened is he would have just said, "Put that hat on and let's go."
Right. She did you a favor.
Yeah,
for sure.
She did, but it could have been, "I didn't sanction that. Who told y'all to do that?" Who knows? His house, his rules.
True. Now, we know what the power that you have with other songs, but also the simplicity that you can bring to stuff to not be over the top. Say during the new tour, when it came to Nothing Compares to You and other slower songs, you would play it just for the right tone. It wouldn't be over the top, but you would hit still with those things. Is that something that you just knew how to do, or is it something that you had to go over with rehearsal with him? Just curious.
No, I'd had a fair amount of experience in the studio and working as a freelance musician. So, you start to get a concept for, you speak a certain language, and then, if it's too colloquial, if it's too specific to a specific region, maybe if somebody wants a different region. Like there's a difference between soul music, from the West Coast and soul music from the Midwest. You know what I mean? Like there's a different language to speak. So I just did what I felt was appropriate, unless somebody said otherwise. If that makes sense.
Okay. Absolutely.
If he didn't like what was happening, you could tell by his face. So, but I was always the secret to being in that environment was being flexible minded. You just have to stay open, but you're also told that there's an impossible standard to maintain. Stay open, but don't mess up. So it takes a very specific kind of personality. That's why I say, because I know the fans like to rate the players and whatnot. And I'm like, listen, let me just say this once and for all, that anybody who could hang with Prince long enough for you to know about him was a stellar musician. You know what I mean? It's like, I've said this before, and I don't know how people take it or not, or I don't know how people take it. But the truth is that a genius needs a genius around them. You can't accomplish what Prince accomplished without having absolute, like you're around for him to access. You are there to follow him on his creative journey, and not everybody can do that. You got to have an understanding of what's going on. That no matter the chops can't save you. You got to understand. You got to understand what's happening. And so, I know when we were let go and Kirk came in, a lot of people oh wow, well, they gave him, there was a certain amount of grief about Kirk taking over and so on and so forth. But me and Kirk are friends. We've been friends since before either of us worked for Prince. And I always liked Kirk's from myself. And I know what it takes to sit in that seat. And whoever did, if it extended longer than just a few minutes, you had something special to offer Prince. So all the rating and all that, I know it keeps people enthused and, in a certain headspace, but the real deal is it takes a genius to work with a genius. Otherwise, he has no use for you. He doesn't need somebody to tell him things that he already knows. He needs information of another kind, which is why, a lot of, and boy, did he get it. Sonny and I were just jamming to get tones for the engineer on a recording session. I can't remember what year that was, but it turned out to be 3121. We were just funking for fun. And the engineer was getting tones, and I saw Prince step into the airlock of the studio, and he looked in the control room, and then he looked out where we were at, and he high stepped it to that blue Stratocaster. Like, what key is this? What are we doing? What are we doing, fellas? We just grooving. I like this. Hold up, wait a minute. And like that, we gave him another one. Me and Sonny looked at each other like, Prince? But that's how it goes. Going on to those premises, that any ideas you may reveal or communicate, that belong to Prince. But Sonny and I, when we get together, we inspire each other so much that new music was always happening. Now is a loop of me and Sonny. What else? Repop Go to Zipper. That's me and Sonny. There's a loop of me and Sonny in the middle of P Control that he predicated that entire groove on. So, I'm just saying, we were there to do more than just what we were told. Prince, right? We were there as resources to keep his creativity moving in a certain kind of direction. That's why he would choose anyone. I think is that you give him something that he can't get necessarily on his own.
True. Now with 3121 and how that came to be, I think I've asked you this maybe a year or two ago on Facebook or whatnot, but there is a longer version of it. I know what you guys created, but there did end up being a longer version of it recorded, right?
Which song? I'm sorry.
3121.
I'm not even sure. I don't own the album, so I'm not sure what made it on. I don't know if there's alternate versions or not. I just know we funked for a while.
Yeah.
And he just kind of called the breaks out as we were recording. Like, he just like, okay, break down. And we do. He didn't tell us really what to do. It just meant do something. And so what we did worked for him. And then we looked up and like, oh, it's the title track of the new record? Wow. All right. Well, you're welcome. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
Awesome. I believe there is a longer version of it. What another question that someone had was, it's kind of long-winded, but I'll go towards the end because you talked about it. The last tour for the Gold Experience in Yokohama, Japan, what was the end of that tour like for you, being in such fine form with the band?
Did that happen during the summer? Because we went to Japan early. We went to Japan early in '96 also.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
I think that's what he's talking about, is early in '96, where it was like the final shows of this MPG band.
Okay, yeah, that would have been it. And it certainly felt that way at the time. Maybe I missed the question. What were they asking?
Like, how did you feel during that time about the band and about things that were going on?
That was a very stressful time for everybody, I think. He was still embroiled in battle with Warner Brothers. I think that the experience was hard on all of us. we were becoming a little bit, I don't know another word for it, but maybe rebellious. Like we began, everybody was burnt out, I think, and the stress of the situation he was going through kind of just trickled down. And that was really, those were the last times we actually performed together. You're right. Um, but yeah, it was a little rough. I remember because it took a longer time than normal for the equipment to arrive in Japan, and we had to stop rehearsing a little earlier than we probably should have for it to get there. Then I don't remember what was happening at the time, but we got to Japan, and the first day we got there, there was a show that night. So sound check was like, I mean, it was like a rehearsal to try to remember. Like we've had 4 weeks off. We got to get back into this and figure out how to not to mess this show up. The show wasn't awful, but it wasn't great. And he got kind of upset, and that began kind of a I guess the only word to use was kind of a rift between us at that point. We kind of sectioned off to ourselves, and him and Mike, they kind of did their thing while we were in Japan. And I think that he was trying to punish us for an awful show, and I think that the terms were unreasonable. There was not enough time for us to prepare to do what we needed to do, and that wasn't our fault. But as you know, if you messing up on stage, who are you going to blame? So, that's right. So, what was there to really say about it except he just kind of went cold on us and stopped coming on stage doing sound check and would ask for whatever he wanted from out front of house. And we did our prayer meeting in our dressing room. He did whatever he did in his, and that went on for about 5 or 6 shows. I want to say maybe that's a few too many, maybe 3, until I guess he finally decided it was that we were forgiven, and then the tone kind of changed. But we all looked at each other like, I don't like that. Like we kind of discussed it with one another, like it's either we're all in this together or we're not. And that seemed like he kind of he kind of grandstanded on us in a context where it was unwarranted. And we decided to kind of stay, in that kind of space. Like we just got more rebellious as time went on. So by the time we were fired in March, I think it was. I think it was as much. We were as upset. I was as upset about being fired as I was happy about getting out. Half of me was upset, and the other half of me was going, "He's doing you a favor." Because you can't stay in an environment like that for your entire career. You have to at some point. Well, number one, I started that job when I was 19, and by that time I was 25, going on 26. So you reach a point where you're too mature to have somebody telling you when to come, when to go, where, for how long. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I was at the point where that was not for me anymore. I needed to determine my own destiny from that point forward. And so, that's what I'm saying, is I had mixed feelings about it, and I was upset with him for a long time after. But around the time that I was invited back to record drums on Baby Knows, that's when we mended whatever fences we had. We never had another problem after.
Great. That's good.
Yeah.
Now, here is a technical question, just to give you a little bit of a break from the Prince stories and whatnot.
All right. I'm just going to take a photo of my vegetables and whatnot here.
Do your thing. I'll take my time with the question. Right. Keely says, Drum Geek here. Did you pick your own equipment, i.e. FX cymbals, drums and stuff, or did P have preferences and set you up with his choices for you to play?
Sorry. I'll say that the first thing we really did together publicly was the Party Man video. And the kit they got for me was was supposed to mimic like a 1930s type kit. But the kick drum was like a 32-inch kick drum. And I mean, if you see the video, you'll see. And I know he was taken with that, the size of that kick drum. He's like, you need a set like that, like a big kick, like, drums everywhere. And so what happened was, I think Brad Marsh was the drum tech still at that night. He asked me, well, what do you want? And they special ordered a custom kit from Yamaha, which was all like, the kick drum was a 26, because I don't think they made anything any bigger than that. And even that had my toms like way up. The kit that I'm playing during the nude tour was the kit they ordered, to my speculation. All Prince said was, make sure the kick is big and you got a lot of toms. And I think also he said it needed to be black, because the nude tour was black and gold. So the kit was black and gold. It was a recording custom kit. 12, 13, 15, 16, 18. 12, 13, 15 on the rack toms, and 16 and 18 on the floor toms, a 26-inch kick. And he never said a whole lot about the cymbals. I mean, he liked my choices. He had been behind one of my kits once before, and he was quick. Oh, I like this. Oh, what's that? Do they make this like this, or so on and so forth? So he was interested, but I mean, he had, you gotta compromise. You gotta cooperate. So, that was the biggest kit I played, and thank God that at some point I went back to a more spare setup, because I mean that when you're that young, you can reach for whatever with ease. But it's I'm glad I only really had to do that one tour, because that was a big kit, and it was it wasn't easy to get around. So
here it is, 19 years old. You're in the Party Man video for the Batman soundtrack, and then what's coming up next? You guys doing Electric Chair on Saturday Night Live for the 15th anniversary at that time.
That's right.
Now, that was your first major TV appearance, correct?
That's correct, yes.
How was that experience?
I walked into Paul Simon's dressing room by accident.
Whoops.
And he was sitting there. I thought it was our dressing room. And he looked up, oh, sorry. He said, oh, no, that's cool. Hey, I saw you guys. He saw our sound check, for camera blocking and whatnot. You want to come in? You want some fruit? No. Okay. Thank you. Bye. I mean,
hilarious.
It was great.
Hilarious.
I mean, Margaret Cox was singing backgrounds. Patrice Rushen was on keys. Mm-hmm. We rehearsed for probably a week, and jammed a lot. And Candy Dulfer was there also, and we had a great time. I mean, the show went off without a hitch, and I don't know what to really say. I mean, everything went as supposed to.
It was a great performance, and that was the only time that band was together, as you mentioned, with Margie Cox, Patrice Rushen, and Candy Dulfer up in that.
Yeah.
Like, was that just it for that one appearance, or was there supposed to be more of a broader use of that band?
Let me respond to Largo for a second.
Okay.
It's only because it's vegetables and is it quinoa? I would not normally, but it's gonna be it's not gonna be good when it gets cold, Largo. I don't mean any disrespect.
It isn't. Look, I'm drinking. It's all good, man.
Largo doesn't want
this isn't Fallon
eating pearl onions during my interview.
Hey, I have my drinks during this interview, and I sometimes feel bad about it, so don't go for it, man. It's all good.
I've had a long day. Anyway,
right?
Boss move. You're funny. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your question, Doctor.
Not at all. No, but that was it with that band, because that was a one-time performance band. Was there anything? Were they going to be used for anything else, that band, or was it just for that performance?
Wow. Only Prince really knows. I mean,
Hmm.
The impression I got was that he wanted Patrice Rushen to come with us, but I think that when you try to get people who are already established and doing their own thing, to take time away from it to contribute to yours, it can often be difficult. I mean, I made an attempt at returning into the fold with Prince for a very short while. We had a band that I don't think much of anybody knew about because it was only probably a few days. It was just me and Cassandra and Jubu Smith, great guitar player, and Goucher, great bass player. We were rehearsing in Studio A while he had another band rehearsing in the soundstage. And the trouble is that once you're out of that routine, it's difficult to make room in your life for that. Like, because Prince is very extemporaneous. Like, he doesn't want to plan too far ahead, but he wants you to be perfectly available when he calls. So, that I realized I got too much going on with Soul Asylum right now to that I need to know what I'm doing. And, I wasn't pressuring him for answers, but I'm just saying, I don't think this is going to work for me. And I think Jubu went back to work with Frankie Beverly and Mays, and Goucher and Cassandra obviously stayed on. They did more things. They worked with Andy Allo. They, like the whole nine. They were there and stayed involved. But, I tried to make it work. But, somebody once said you can't go back,
Right.
And I think that the best thing that we could have done was continue to work together in the studio from time to time like we did, and just, I mean, that the what was supposed to happen did happen in that respect. We even tried with the Jay Leno show, with the Leno show where we played Dreamer in 2009, I think it was.
Yes.
Like, we were always flirting with getting things back together and pushing forward. But, it's just once you're in a position where you're forced to go your own way, it's hard to come back from that,
True.
Yeah.
Now, I saw someone's question, of course, because I do want to get to the New Power Trio, but I kind of like this question as a thing for it. Claire, she'd love to know more about the Undertaker session. And then, of course, then we can get to the New Power Trio through that, which is a good setup question. So thank you, Claire. Appreciate you.
Prince gave us Christmas vacation because he had to. Morris and Tommy left town to make sure they weren't getting called for nothing. And Sonny and I stayed in town because we didn't have nowhere to go. And about 3 days into vacation, Prince calls and says, "Are you bored too?" I said, "Yeah, I could get into something, man." He said, "Will you call Sonny and can you guys come out here?" I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" So we both went out there. And I think first we were in Studio C. And we were just playing around with ideas for songs. And kind of jamming, it was loose. But I could feel something was shaping up. And by the second or third day, we were recording. We were recording songs like Dark and I'm trying to remember. There's a version of Solo that's like very trio and kind of hard rock that we cut around that time. Calhoun Square was something we also recorded. Like, it was a tie line from the rehearsal room to Studio A. And then a day went by where we didn't do anything. And then he called again and said, "Can you guys come out?" And we walked out and we went where we thought we were supposed to go, I'm pretty sure. But we were set up in the soundstage, actually. And Paris Patton had been there, and I think he was editing the Sacrifice of Victor movie. So he was at Paisley, and I think, so it was just like, "Paris, come back here around 2:00 in the morning. We were going to do something." So we step out, to the soundstage, and we see our gear set up and lit. And Paris is like winding the camera and doing this and that, and I mean, it was that impromptu. He didn't really explain a whole lot. We just kind of did what we did, and that recording is it's truthfully a direct to that tape jam. There was no way to overdub. There was no way to master it. It really, literally, what you hear with the Undertaker recording is just what happened and how it happened. Fortunately, the sound was right, and fortunately, Paris didn't break the camera. I don't know what else to say except it was magical, and that I know for a fact that it changed a lot of people's minds about Prince as a guitar player. And a lot of people heard that and said, we didn't know he could play like that. But there was a thing about that format, the power trio, that was totally in the moment. It was extemporaneous. He could play in any key. He'd start in any key. Sonny's got perfect pitch, so he's going to know where he's at already. And he's already playing, so I know what the tempo is. So just like he looked back and it's like, let's go, fellas, and we just go, And we could play all night like that. And we did. We moved from the soundstage into the atrium, and we played one night there. And we invited a bunch of our friends, and I remember Billy Franzi from the combo, from Dr. Mambo's combo. Billy told Prince, he said, "This is the best thing I've ever seen you do. It's incredible." And another friend of mine yelled out mushroom music while we were playing it.
What?
And Prince kind of was like, yeah. And the whole thing was very I don't know. It was just that whole period. It was exciting, and I think it might have been a direction he wanted to really seriously go in. But and very few people know, but at some point we flew to Los Angeles to play as a trio at the House of Blues. And it never happened. We flew there. We went to SIR to rehearse. We shot the video for Peach. And the next morning, he was like, we ain't going to do it. So we flew back to Minneapolis that night. And I remember we didn't really want to give, we were sort of instructed not to tell Tommy and Morris about it because, it wasn't a solid thing. It was not something he had decided he wanted to really do, and he didn't want them to be unnerved or feel threatened or any kind of weird way. You know what I mean? It's like you don't communicate everything all the time.
And what's interesting is I was 18 at that time, and I was hearing rumors, hey, man, Prince is going to be playing the House of Blues. Like, it's going to happen. I believe it was during a weekday where you guys were flown out. I'm not certain of that. But I was hearing it, and I was like, dude, I'm not going to be able to get down there. But then, and then it's like the next day, it didn't happen. The entire time I was bummed, and it would have been amazing. But yeah.
That's exactly what it was. I don't think he was ready to pull a trigger on that. It's but Sonny and I were going, wow, this is going to be like him elevating us to the level of like Buddy Miles and Billy Cox. It's going to be like the new, like the new band of gypsies almost. Like that was going to be a major turn for us if he decided to do it. But I'm not upset that he didn't. I get it. Like some things, only move when you're sure. Only do it when you're sure. And I don't think he was ready to change everything. And that was great. I didn't want to see Tommy and Morris out of a job. Their gear was always around, but they weren't during that time. And it was like me and Sonny kept looking at each other like, what's really happening? So, but we got a lot of classics out of it. A lot of stuff people still come up to me about. Calhoun Square is a big fan favorite. Xana Lee, a few others. I don't come to mind right now. But Papa was also another one that we recorded in the studio very quickly.
Now with The Undertaker, its original thing, at least that's what we hear, he wanted to give it away with Guitar World magazine. Apparently Warner Brothers found out about that and it didn't happen. So how was Prince's mood when here it was, you're going to give away this CD. He wants people to find out what a great guitarist he is. As you said, people were paying attention to him more for that. And here it was, his idea to give it away with Guitar World, and Warner Brothers put the squash on that. That was true. That's what was supposed to happen, right? With it coming out with the Guitar World, the magazine.
The interview happened. It came out, but without the insert, because I think he sent it. My understanding is that he sent it away for mastering and duplication at a local plant. And the local plant looked and said, "We don't have anything from Paisley Park on the schedule. What's this?" And so I think they called somebody at Warner Brothers to find out, like, "You guys got a Prince record coming out on schedule?" And they were like, "No." And so they, obviously doubled back and were like, what's happening? What's going on? And Prince explained to them what the idea was, and they were like, "Well, you can't, respectfully, you can't just do that. You can't just put your music out whenever you feel like it. I mean, we have a contract, we have a business arrangement. It doesn't work like that." And I think he accepted that at that moment, but the situation escalated later when he did an interview for Rolling Stone when he was talking about the Gold Experience. He was talking about it. We hadn't started working on it yet. And he happened to be on a call. Well, I think it was with Mo Austin. And Mo was like, "We don't know anything about this Gold Experience record." And Prince said, "Well, I haven't started working on it. It's in my head still." So, "Well, okay, well, when you finish that up, we'll be happy to take it, And Prince was like, "Well, you're talking like it's your property, and these are thoughts that I have in my head." And it was like, "Are you trying to convey the message to me that a record that I haven't even worked on yet, that I'm just conceiving of in my head, belongs to you?" And I'm sure the situation escalated from that point. The phone call definitely did. And I think Prince sat for a minute and he thought about that. And he was like, "No, I don't like that. That's not going to work for me." And started trying to figure out a way to get out. Like, if that's really what you think of me, like, we can't respect each other as equals. Without product, you don't have anything to do. So, and he just kept putting two and two together. Yeah, exactly. The next day, he walked down to rehearsal with Slave written on his face. And nobody asked him nothing. And then slowly but surely, he started to explain to us what was happening. And it became almost a daily situation where we showed up for rehearsal and got summoned immediately to his office so that he had somebody to vent to. And so, I know on the outside, a lot of people were like, "Princeton lost his mind. What is he talking about?" And even us, it's like, okay, we're trying to follow, but you can't express. Only the person in the position can have a full understanding of what's taking place. You know what I mean? If you ain't been there, then you don't know. And so we gleaned what we could from his interpretation of the events. And as everybody knows, things got more hardcore as it went. We went on tour for a record that was not supposed to come out. And he took an ad out in Billboard to tell you so. So, I think that was his way of being defiant and being rebellious, and I'm not sure that they were any more mature in their dealing of the situation. And I think a lot of those executives, if you ask them now, they'll go, "Yeah, in retrospect, we can see his point. But business is business,
Right.
So anyway, I mean, it was a mixed bag, man. I mean, we got to Europe. We got to England first, I think. And every night the people started chanting, "F Warner Brothers, F Warner Brothers." And we were looking, and Prince would turn around the band and start laughing. And so it was, it was a public war, and I wished it didn't. I wished it wasn't so undignified. But it's a thing I like to tell people in this day and age that you can't tell somebody how to protest, their own genocide. Somebody trying to choke you out. You can't be critical of what they may do when they're put in that position. So, I've said that about George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and a lot of things that have been transpiring as of late. Because a lot of people want to say, "Well, they're burning things down," and you can't. If you're going to threaten an entire people, then get ready for what's coming. You're going to try to kill a race of people, then prepare. Guard your loins. Don't complain about how they protest. Get ready. You should expect derision and action and furniture moving and smoke in the city. It's serious. You're trying to kill us. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. I digress. Where are we going now, Doctor?
I understand. And of course, Mo Austin being the head of Warner Brothers, and for how long he was, you'd think he would have known not to go that way with Prince. That's surprising, but that whole battle was supposed to happen. I believe the interview that you're referring to as well was with Alan Light for Rolling Stone, which he didn't get cover for, but it is an interesting interview, and he that's where he started trusting Alan a lot more. And I think it's because Alan went to the New York shows of the actual on tour, and he really liked it, and Prince liked what he wrote. So that's where he trusted Alan to do the interview. Just adding notes onto that. Another question that we have is from YouTube. And of course, now it's not showing for some reason, but there we go. An interview where you said the vault is only a mystic if it's not opened. Is the mystic gone for the vault now?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't. The only member of the family I've been in very, very, very loose contact with has been Omar. I don't have any conception of what may be there or not. I know this. Around the time that the hits, the B-sides package came out, there was a problem with some of the older tapes because you can't just leave tape to just fester. It's going to decompose. And the only thing that can fix it is you have to put them in a kiln, like you do with pottery. You have to bake the tapes so that I don't know the technical terms, but you have to bake the tape so that it returns to form. But I don't know. I'm under the impression that you only get really one time to play it before it may discombobulate again. So they were in a mad dash to bounce all these 2-inch tapes. I remember, I think it was for The Tears in Your Eyes. They opened the box and the tape was just crumbling. And it was like, ah! So, whoever was on staff at the time, I think it may have been like Ray Hanfeld or Steve Durkee. I don't remember, but they were in a mad dash to bake the tapes so they could transfer them to new tape so they could live on. And I saw the vault only one time. I got to peek inside. I think Ray was putting some tapes back. I said, "Are you going to the vault?" He said, "Yeah." "Why? You want to see it?" I said, "Yeah." So I followed him down, and I didn't have the nerve to actually walk in, but he knew the combination to the door and everything. It's an actual vault. The door, it's like a bank, like it's a tumbler thing. And there's a little room. There was a little room that you stepped into before you got to the door. Well, to see the door, but there's a room outside that door that just had like the Grammys and the Oscars and all the accolades, and I think a lot of pageantry, like feathers and and just like a lot of foof. Like it was a decorated room where he kept his awards. He opened the door, he walked in, and I slowly walked to the door and looked inside. And you know what, like business office, like shelving looks like that beige sort of metal with the, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah, like shelving in an office unit.
Yeah.
Rows and rows and rows. Just tape. Probably 10 of those office shelving units. Tape, 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 tape. Movie reel on the floor in a box. I said, "What's this?" And Ray said, "I think it's some movie they shot before Purple Rain." I'm like, oh, I'd heard about the myth about this movie, The Second Coming, and that never came out. I don't know if there's footage out there of it, but it was sitting in a cardboard box near the entryway into the vault, which I found funny. That's how much he cared about that. But I think that whatever situation the family has with the with whoever is taking over, I think they're seeing to that. They're seeing that the tapes are properly restored and in some kind of condition. I mean, at least I hope so. But that was what was communicated to me by somebody who I think was supposed to know.
Yeah, it's at Iron Mountain right now, and they haven't said for the most part that they're. It seems that mostly of it, a huge majority was salvageable. So that's a good thing. But it is at Iron Mountain now, which I do feel is a better place than Paisley was for having it for these instances we talked about, whether it was for the tears in your eyes or other water damage that would happen at Paisley Park there. It being at Iron Mountain and the tapes being baked, for the most part, they've been salvageable for sure.
Okay. I'm glad to know that because that's a lot of music.
Yes. A ridiculous amount.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Some of the stuff would be on files that you were making in the 90s, because of course he did like having the 2-inch tapes, but there was stuff that he would make the files on and you'd see the disc, and I believe they were able to transfer those over as well. But ridiculous amount of music. And The Second Coming, there has been some footage over the past few years that has circulated, but that is something that is in there. They haven't brought that up in interviews yet, though, if that's been salvageable. But I do know that the person that did direct it, I believe they have a copy of it still. So here's hoping it'll get an official release in time with the family running things and whatnot in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. Can I, Gwen? I'm sorry. I'm eating a medley of vegetables. Is this grits on grits and gravy? It's delicious. It's I peeled some of these pearl onions myself a little earlier before the interview, but my wife was so gracious to bring the plate down to me, so I didn't want to disrespect her by just letting it sit there. She went through a lot of trouble. What else is in here? Sweet potatoes, zucchini, peppers. Yes, we're getting ready to move to a vegetarian diet in this house.
Hey, it's all good because it reminds me of it wasn't in the 3 Chains of Gold, but it was in the Act 1 special ABC concert where you're doing an interview and someone brings you a piece of pizza and you go, only one piece. So this whole thing with the vegetables things, it just reminds me of that. So I'm having a good time.
Sorry. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. Right.
I'm loving it.
It's actually not quinoa, it's grits. It just, how many grits?
Now,
I like quinoa. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely no. When it comes to The Undertaker, Sacrifice of Victor, and these other things, just like The Second Coming isn't circulating, is there other things that were shot that way? Whether it was The Undertaker or Sacrifice of Victor, other things that you made that still haven't seen the light of day that were close to a film project, more so than unreleased videos? Because we know there's a lot of those.
Well, we were shooting all the time. I mean, we actually shot a segment. I don't know what it was for, but we were all playing basketball. I wasn't really, because I don't know how to play. I was watching mostly, but I had this idea. I said, what we should do is we should shoot like me going to the hoop, and and everybody should be backing up. Yeah, I'm driving to the hoop, and then we should cut, and I'll go up the ladder, and I'll slam it into the net, and we'll cut it like that. It'll look like I just slammed dunk. And he started cracking up. He's like, "No, let's do it. Let's do it right now." So he got Paris to come. We shot this thing. We were always shooting stuff. We showed up one time, and we were being. I don't know what the footage was for. It seemed like he was putting together some kind of magical mystery tour type of movie. But then, like, we had lines. We showed up. We thought we were going to be recording music, and instead it was like we had lines, and we walked into like Studio A, and it was like, "Oh, well, who's in here?" And Sonny was like, "Whoever's in here, they're about to get whooped." Something. I've seen it played back, so I know it's out there somewhere. I don't know what that was for, but this was like, I want to say that Andy Allo was in it, and a lot of people. Can you tell me what this is I'm referring to?
I'm trying to now, because now I was thinking of a different time period, and now you're over here with Andy Allo. So I'm not thinking of it right now. If there's someone else in the room that may know, please hip us to it. But this is all interesting.
I mean, it was set up to look like kind of like we were coming back, and we were taking over. We were either kicking Hannah and
No, okay. It wasn't for any. It was actually for the 3121 movie. It was Josh Dunham and CeCe Dunham, and I saw this in the movie footage. It was kind of a slam to CeCe and Josh.
Yeah.
To where he's all like, "This ain't working," and then all of a sudden it's like he leaves, and it's like he goes into another studio, and then there's you and there's Sonny, and then you guys are jamming, and then he goes, "That's what I'm talking about."
Yeah, I know. I felt weird about that myself. I'm like, why would you?
So yeah, it's for the 3121 movie.
Okay.
And that is, at least in the version that I saw of it, that was still in it.
All right. Well, I hope they know we were just reading our lines. I think they're both extraordinary musicians. I remember when Josh started working for Prince, he said, "You need to hear my new bass player." He came down to Bunkers. He's like, "Man, you really like my new bass player because he's a young cat, but he plays kind of old." I said, "Oh, all right, yeah, man, great." And the first time I got to play with Josh, it was like, "Wow, man." He really, I really enjoyed playing with him a lot. And I the first time Cora came down and sat in at Bunkers, like, man, she's bad. Like, those two musicians have my utmost respect, as all of those people do, because that's not an easy environment to function in. You got to almost have photographic memory. You know what I mean? Because the show is being changed all the time. The music's being changed. Things are changing all the time. If you're, if you're slow, you're not gonna last long. So I'm saying I'm officially giving credit to all who entered that door and managed to stay longer than a day or so.
Definitely.
But yeah, here's a question. They must have been fighting at that time.
Yeah, Prince can be that way, right? We know.
Yeah, well, he can be a lot of ways.
Yes. It's all good. And now with this one, this is an interesting question, perhaps. Can you tell us about playing Stand Up and Be Strong and playing it for Prince and him recording a cover of it?
Oh, well, sure. I mean, the situation was that I had joined Soul Asylum in 2005, and the record got a pretty good push. I'm sorry, did we lose him, but not me? Doctor? Did the doctor leave? I don't know. I don't see him no more. I'll keep answering the question though. No, maybe I better not.
No, go for it. Oh. Sorry about that. It's my fault. Popped out, pop back in.
All right. I mean, basically, the record came out, and the song was the first single, and it did really well. And I think ESPN picked it up for a little while, and they played in some sporting events, and we were touring around the country, and there were all these like high school football teams and college football teams that had taken it on as their anthem. And I did a session for Prince somewhat later after it had been released. And he said, I heard that Stand Up Be Strong song. He said, was that a hit for you guys? Did it chart? I said, no. It could have gone probably higher if we had had a different delivery system. We had signed with Sony Legacy. And Sony Legacy was a label that was used to re-releasing music. They did a lot of reissues. So there wasn't a huge promotional budget. And so we did what we could. And he was like, that song is a great song. And I said, yeah, well, I'll be sure to tell Dave that you liked it. He really, he really likes your music also. I mean, he's a fan as well. And we went on and we cut a couple things that he wanted to record. And then he said, do you think Dave would mind if I did a cover of that song? And I said, I think he'd be honored. He said, can you call him? Because I don't want to get into a legal thing later on. I said, sure. I said, I'll just step out and call him. And I stepped outside of Studio A into the hallway there. And I called Dave. And I said, Dave, Prince is asking if he can do a cover of Stand Up and Be Strong. What? He wants to cover that song? Wow. Oh, it was around the time that Prince did the Super Bowl. Because it was a little while after that. And Dave was like, I'm sure he swore a couple times, and he went, yeah, absolutely. I said, he just wants to make sure he has yes, he's got it. And tell him, by the way, that the Super Bowl was killing. Like, he was really great. He said, all right. And so we started working on it, and he didn't know the words well enough to like just kind of go at it straight away. So we kind of recorded the bass together, and I know somebody got the words for him, and I don't know if he ever actually finished that arrangement, that version, or not. We never really talked about it after that. But what was that? The Super Bowl was that 2007?
Yes.
That makes sense because the record came out in 2006. So the Silver Lining.
So he was paying attention.
Yeah. He was, well, I think that he tended to anyway. I think he was always curious, what people were going to do once they were, out and about. And, I think that it's funny because I worked for Jam and Lewis for a short while after Prince fired us. And they had an artist named Angel Grant they were working on. And she was a background singer from Atlanta who did a lot of the background vocals on Janet Jackson's records. And it was me and Big Jim Wright, Terry and Jimmy playing, and a guitar player that worked with her. And also Libby Turner on backgrounds, and Prof T from Low Key. Perspective Records. They were with Terry and Jimmy. And Terry asked me in the middle of rehearsal, he's like, hey, have you been out to visit Prince since all that? I said, no. I was still a little hot about it, actually, to be honest. I said, why would I do that? He said, somebody like you, I'm sure that he misses you. Like, you should go out there and visit and talk to him. I'm sure he would enjoy that. And that warmed my heart up a little bit. Like, I think that was the first point where I was like, I'm gonna have to give up the ghost, because people are people and everybody does what they know. So whatever malice or anger I got in me, I'm gonna need to let this go. I didn't let it go right then, but I knew that I was going to have to. I'm sorry, I don't remember where I was headed with all of this. But
just that how it came to him,
Yeah, that's what I'm
making
saying.
this song.
And I know that also at one point I was going to I was in line to go work for Michael Jackson. And I know that somebody told Prince that, and he was like, that don't sound like a possibility to me. Like, I don't think that would happen. Meanwhile, I'm going to be the first musician to be able to say I've been in both camps. And sure enough, it did not work out the way it was supposed to. I left tour with Paul Westerberg to sit at home and wait for the confirmation call. And meanwhile, Sonny Emery was already on the Sony lot rehearsing with the band. And nobody called me and told me nothing. So, yeah, that was apparently not meant to be. But yeah, so many people would tell him, or he would find out. I mean, just as certainly as he continued to come to Bunkers on and off, all those years. Mainly to hear Margaret sing, but also to say hey to Sonny, and to see what we were playing. He liked old school music. That's all we played. We never played nothing. If we played anything new, it was because we felt the pressure to have to do it. Otherwise, anything released after 1988 or so, the combo didn't really play it. Just in the last couple of years, we started playing Too Close by Next. But so yeah, he was always around. He was interested in what we were doing and what we were getting into, and whether he told us as much. But I know that he kept up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now you were close to playing with Michael, but you also were close to playing with Madonna as well, correct?
Oh yeah. I went out to, again, I'm back on the Sony lot in Culver City, rehearsing with Madonna for 3 days. And then there's this personnel change, and I get swept out. Me, Michael Bearden, a bunch of people got fired that next morning. Her manager calls and says, hey, how are you doing this morning? I said, great. He said, listen, we're going to fly you home today. Madge said she really enjoyed working with you, but where she's headed right now, you'd be like major league baseball player on a little league team. Like everything is about to change. She's convinced that it will not hold your interest as a musician. So I'm going to direct you to our accounting department, and they'll discuss things with you from there. And the guy kind of called, or the guy got on the phone and he's like, well, okay, well, we know that, because of the caliber of musician you are, you probably turned something else down to do this. So I've been sent to give you I've been instructed to give you some sort of severance. I was like, it's really not that big of a deal, man. He's like, listen, I just need a number. Like, I'm just trying to get on with my life, pretty much. Like, just tell me what you need so that we can make business clean. And I was like, oh, I don't know, 10 grand? It'll be in the mail tomorrow. Thank you, sir. And that was it. So that was my brief dalliance with Madonna. And within the first day, she started calling me Bland. And the other remarkable thing I noticed, the first thing I said on the inside, when she walked in, the way she was walking around the room and sort of surveying what everybody was doing, she hadn't said nothing to nobody. I said, this is Prince in a white woman's suit. Like, she had the exact same sort of like scrutinizing look on her face. Like, she was looking to see whether everything was prepared for her arrival. Like, is everything in place? And it was really interesting working with her. And I knew that Prince had a lot of respect for her as a songwriter. I remember I had said some things about her singing from time to time. He's like, she's not the best singer, but the reason she has so many hits is because she's involved in the writing process greatly. Like, she knows music. She don't play anything really, but she knows what chord she's after. He said, when we work together, I pretty much sit there and I interpret as she tells me what she wants to hear, and I'll play a chord and she'll say, no, not that chord. And I'll give her a variation. I'll say, well, how about here? There it is. Like, she knows what she's after. She didn't have the tools to do it herself. But I mean, really, what is Madonna? She's a mediocre singer, an average dancer at best, but it's beyond that. It's beyond all that. Like, there's something else going on in her that sets her apart from everybody else. And you can criticize her, on a aesthetic level, but you can't criticize her track record. Something is at work. or was. I don't know what she's doing now, but that record Music, that was the last record of hers I bought with my own money. That record Music changed my life. That record is incredible. So I'll just say that.
I like that one too.
Oh,
and yeah, it's from her own admission. She said before that she isn't the best singer, but she still is able to bring different things to the table. You're not disrespecting her at all, and I want people to know that because her own admission.
Because you know what she mastered? She mastered the art of expressing oneself accurately, using herself as a resource, using her life experience. Not every songwriter can really do that. You know, really, your potential always lies within you. You got to dig for what's on the inside. It's a travel inward, and some people are scared to face what they, see when they go in. Like songwriting is anyone who does it well is a brave person, because they got to resonate with things that everybody can feel. Everybody has experience on some level. It's not easy to coalesce the vapor of human experience into a 3-minute song, but some people have managed to do it. It's not easy. I've been doing a lot of songwriting and producing, in the last decade, and it's never over. The process is always going, and I've learned from peers and mentors alike. Some of the best songwriters I know, they're constant. It's like a thing they can't turn off. I remember asking Paul Westerberg, I said, "You got any new music?" He said, "Yeah, a whole lot, but nowhere to put it." He's like, "I write on a pathological level. Every day I come up with something new. I don't even have a record deal right now. It's like I can't control myself." Phil Solem from the Rembrandts. Every time you meet him and you're speaking to him, it's not just a conversation he's having with you. He's playing with your words while you're talking to him. He'll spit your sentences back, rearranged in a way that makes completely no sense in one way and more sense in another. Like he just plays word games. I'm convinced all day. He's just moving words around and trying to find a new way to say, to make a valid commentary on life as we know it. Like it's a never-ending pursuit. So, I mean, I don't know where we're at now, Doctor. I'm just kind of going.
We're everywhere on it. And now someone had this, they brought up the segues to Exodus, but let's just get into Exodus. They want to know the deets.
Oh boy. I think that was probably the height of Prince's anger. And he decided that if he said all the stuff that he made Sonny say, that somebody would come for him. And that record began very aggressively. The first thing we recorded was a song called "Slave to the System." And I don't know what version you got. You got both versions with Prince and Sonny singing?
Probably not that one, but I know the original is better than the one that was out before. But go ahead.
Okay. And from there, I think the next thing we cut was "The Exodus Has Begun." And we didn't know all the words were going to be going by while we were funking like that. We really didn't know until the record came out. Like, whoa, spatchcocks and blackface offer us pennies when it's millions upon millions they reap. Ooh, all right, Prince. Yeah, they might have something to say about that. Okay. I mean, after that, we cut. What's it called? New Power Soul. New Power Soul. I think that was the next thing we cut. But that process moved along really quickly. And we experimented with a couple of ways to record Get Wild that were unsuccessful. He in the end decided to remix it and do more like programming and I think the horn section just ended up being some samples he flew here and there, but like he salvaged what he could from the original track and built something else that was a bit more commercially viable. I'd say. The same thing happened with 319. We cut a version full band with the horns and everything, and it was just like it was unrefined. It wasn't focused in the right way. I understand why he did it, and I like what he did with it. Same thing happened with Race. There's a version, full band version, but he had gone back to the drawing board on it. You know, so I'm just sort of going, man.
That's fine. And then I know, can't say how I know, but there was a lot of remixes at that time for so many songs, whether it was Get Wild or other tracks off the Gold Experience. So I'm kind of like, even P Control, there's so many versions of it, people just aren't aware. There's probably like 20 remixes.
I believe.
Was it just, maybe it was him trying to work through the sound. Now, when it comes to Return of the Bump Squad.
Oh, boy.
Okay, let's get into that. And what exactly is, just because I've heard different variations of it, what exactly is a Bump Squad?
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, I know there's some references to smoking weed in that song.
And other stuff.
Can I get a bump? I mean, it's certainly drug related in some way.
Right.
But I know also, and speaking of those segues, there's one where I asked Sonny if he's still smoking that headache weed. Sonny, you still smoking that headache weed? Oh, man, shut up. So, and actually Prince, was like, hey, say this to Sonny. Because like it was being recorded, like I was on like a make a phone call in the studio type rig. So they were recording it as we were speaking back and forth. And so Prince just like came over and whispered in my ear, asked Sonny if he's still smoking that headache weed. Sonny don't smoke weed. It was just fun and games, man. It was just, we're just goofing around. I mean, we felt silly doing it. And I felt like, why are we returning to this? We had so many complaints about the Symbol album, with all the, I mean, the segues that made it onto the Symbol album, most of them are understandable. But the first version of that record had a lot more in there. And I remember Levi coming to us and saying, I think these segues, there's too many segues on this record. I mean, I want to talk to Prince about it, but, I mean, it ain't really, it ain't my, it's not my job. And, I'm not trying to, get him up. But I'm like, well, no, he's like, but if I can get a consensus from everybody, then he may seriously consider it. So Levi talked to everybody, and then he went to Prince, like, Prince, we got to cut some of these segues off this record. It's like, I realize you're trying to tell a story, but for the listener, it's going to be too much information that they're not going to want to deal with. And Prince listened. He listened to Levi. I mean, I think that Levi, in many ways, he had such an effect on that period. Like, I'll tell you this. I remember the day that we were all sitting. I don't know why we were in the Studio B lounge. I think we were leaving. Some of us were leaving and some of us were coming in. But Levi started talking about, Prince, you need a song called My Name is Prince. And he started, My Name is Prince. Levi literally spit that out of his mouth, and we were cracking up. And he was like, controversy. I want to be your friend. He did the whole thing with his mouth. He beatboxed the whole thing. The only thing Prince didn't do was make a B-side called My Name is Still Prince. That's the only idea he didn't take from Levi in that exchange. And the whole time we were sitting there, we were cracking up. Then I happened to look over in Prince's face, and Prince wasn't laughing. Prince was looking. And he went right in the studio and did it. Sexy MF, Levi used to, I hate to be dropping dime on Levi, but the fact of the matter is, that was something Prince got from Levi. Levi would walk through the building, and sometimes he just mess with people who were in the building. He just peek in people's office and do something crazy and then keep moving. He was just that type of dude. And I don't remember which female employee he used to go in her office, and you could hear him from outside the office. He's you know what? You were sexy, mother. And I think Prince was passing through the atrium one day. He heard Levi say that, we were in the studio. You know, Levi had a lot of. I hope he got credit for a lot of that stuff. Sometimes I'll look at the credits, but I try not to because sometimes it makes me mad. But he had a lot to do with that whole period. Like Prince relied on. Levi was the musical director. We prepare the show. We prepare a good 90 minutes of music for Prince to walk in on the next day and make some notes, and he'd go back to doing whatever he was doing. But Levi was the one who, okay, let's try this. You know, ooh, that's funky, ain't it? Wait a minute, stay there for a minute, and then we can do this. Like, Levi was the mastermind, man. I mean, the two of them working together, we couldn't be stopped. It was crazy. It was crazy.
I'll have to go into that. Now, Sexy MF, and we're going to go into the segues. I'm going to have a question. I'm going to trail back to that. Sexy MF, legend has it, one take. Was it done in one take?
No, it was not. It was. I think it was the second take that everybody is familiar with.
Okay.
I mean, probably the only reason the first take was probably incomplete because we were still moving things around and trying to figure out what we were doing. I mean, Prince was literally at the piano pounding rhythms on the top of the piano to me, like this, like put the snare here, and then and like we had to work to figure out what that beat was, and then Kirk had to fall in with the congas on top of that. So it was a bit of a Ouija board. So you can't always get it right the first time. God forbid you ask Prince for a third time going through because he didn't want to have to do it. I remember a day that I said, "Can we do it one more time?" And he was like, "No." He said, and he literally said, "That space is fine. I'll do something with it. You worse than me." And he just basically kicked me out the studio. Like you are more critical of yourself than I am. And with that, kicked me out the studio.
See, and that just like reminds me, like when you're hearing the ending of the morning papers, and it's like you hear like okay, and it's like to stop. It's like he's like, all right, we're not going to do another take of that. We're going to go on. That's because it kind of sounded like you didn't have that many takes of it, but it sounded amazing. And to the segues,
I'll
go
tell
ahead.
You about morning papers. I'm sorry, but
no, please.
A couple of songs that just happened to be one more take. I mean, even Diamonds and Pearls. The second take, the only difference, there were two differences. One that we removed a beat from a bar after the bridge. And also, the first time we played it, I didn't do any of that, magnanimous drum filling in that space. Because he hadn't said to do anything. So I presumed I left it empty. And we got ready to do it again. And he said, oh, this time, first he discussed the removal of this one beat from this bar. And then he was getting ready. Everybody ready? He said, oh, he literally said it right before he hit play and record on the what do they call it? Transport. He said, oh, also that space during the first part of the bridge, put something in there before we go into this. And I went, okay. So the entire time we're cutting the second pass of Down to I'm like, what am I gonna do? And it just kind of came to me in a split second, like right before it all happened. And I mean, that's really the difference. I didn't get a chance to work it out. We were in a hurry. We were getting ready to head downtown. Tommy and Sonny and I were all headed downtown because I think they were either subbing for some of the cats in the combo that night. Like we were all going downtown after rehearsal with MC Flash, which was Margaret Cox's band. Prince walked down to the soundstage and caught us before we left and said, I got this idea in my head. I'm trying to get it out. Can you stay for a few minutes? Which turned into, this is great. Can you guys go in Studio B with me right quick and record this? So we had no time to deliberate. Like it really moved quickly. And not only that, he was so happy with the results that he sent Dwayne and them down after us to bunkers after we finished and said, Prince want y'all to come back out to Paisley. So we went back that night and cut Live for Love. I think once he got to track with Tommy and Sonny and I together, he saw that he could move very efficient. Like he saw that everybody could keep up and that we could do great things in a very efficient amount of time. So that's why we recorded so much together, because I'm not making any digs, or I'm not comparing or conflating our the way we work to how the Revolution worked or the Love Sexy band. I mean, those were all killer bands. Everybody knows it, you know. But the way people work together is unique, you know. I mean, the reality is, for better or worse, there's only one person like me in the whole universe, you know. And what Prince was best at was harnessing your true potential. And me and Sonny, it's like we rode to this planet on the same spaceship. The day I met Sonny, I met my musical soulmate. And Prince knew anything he put on top of me and Sonny, it was going to go. He just knew that. So when he needed that very specific thing, well, we were there, you know? Yeah.
Definitely. And when it came, and we're going to jump to this and we'll get back to Diamonds and Pearls and the other things, because it came to some of the segues being eliminated from the Symbol album, including one with Maite playing with her child Michael in the year closer to 2020. Maybe there's a reason why it was eliminated from the track, but you guys had, which was supposed to be a cassette-only bonus, was I Want to Melt With You. So some of the segues being eliminated brought on I Want to Melt With You, which we wouldn't have been able to get if not for that. I wonder what else we would have had if some more segues were taken out, you know?
Well, there was always music. I mean, we were never in short supply of music. I mean,
and it does, absolutely, you're right. And definitely it seems that the segues from Exodus were a lot more popular than the one from the Symbol album, for sure.
Okay.
Mashed Potato Girl.
All right.
You know, Count the Days, all that stuff with just the thing with Sonny, with him taking a basically gunshot like Elvis to the TV.
Yeah, he definitely painted Sonny in a very certain light. I'm not sure if Sonny appreciated that or not, but the two of them had known each other since. I mean, I think Sonny was probably 17 and Prince was probably 15. We're talking about two guys who just met on the city bus. Each of them had a guitar, and it was like, "Oh, hey, you play guitar? All right." Like literally, that's what happened. They met on the bus, on the city bus. They both had guitar cases, and they just started talking. And a lot of people don't know when Prince's band kicked him out, and he had to go solo. He decided he was going to raise money and go to Los Angeles and shop for a deal. And Sonny hired Prince. Prince played guitar in the family for a while and got his money up for that trip to take out to Los Angeles to shop. You know, I mean, those two were they were true friends, and I don't want to cry about it, but I remember the last night that Prince was at Bunkers, and Sonny went back to talk to him before he left. He's like, "Oh, you leaving, man?" Yeah. And, they just took a moment, and Sonny said, "I love you, man. Like no matter what, like to the universe and back." And Prince said, "I love you too, Sonny," and he disappeared out that door through the kitchen. That was the last time we saw him. Sonny got to tell him that, you know. And I mean, you're talking about two people who are more than colleagues, you know. I mean, in many ways, Sonny was Prince's mentor, you know, and he said as much in his interview in a Guitar Player magazine or whatever, Guitar World. And I remember the interviewer kept digging for like a bigger influence, like a popular influence. And, well, we'd heard that you grew up listening to a lot of Santana, and we feel like we hear notes of Jimi Hendrix. And Prince was like, "Yeah, I dug those guys, but really it was Sonny." Prince told me from his own mouth, he said, me and Andre used to go to Sonny's house, like in the afternoon. And we looked down the basement window to see if he was home. He said Sonny would be downstairs in his mom's house on a mattress, no box spring, with a big nose amp and a Stratocaster and a wah-wah pedal, and chain smoking, just smoking the whole time. And they'd wave like, can we come down? And they'd go downstairs, and Sonny would commence to giving them a guitar clinic, unparalleled by anyone else they could possibly, get to. And it said it was better than watching television. We just go to Sonny's house, and he'd give us, he'd play, and like that was the most amazing thing we could see that day. He said, like, the only thing left to do after that is like go outside and swat mosquitoes. That was it. Like they I mean, really, the entire black music community owes a debt of gratitude to Sonny. I've never met anybody so selfless about sharing knowledge about music, and he's a natural teacher. He's just he will encourage anybody. Sonny Thompson you may never get him on your show because he don't really like to speak publicly that much, but I will speak and say that he has maybe the biggest heart of any musician I know. He'll help anybody if it comes to music. If you're trying to learn, Sonny will share the knowledge he's got. And without Sonny, we don't know what may have happened to us. Really, like he needed Sonny in his life. But I think I would agree with. I think Jimmy Jam was the one who said the reason it took him so long to actually put Sonny in his band is that you've got to be in a particular headspace to be in a band with your mentor, with somebody who taught you so much. Like you got to really, your head's got to be ready for that. So, it's again, I'm just kind of meandering, man. Stop me whenever you want. Doctor, did you lose me? Doctor, can you hear anything? He's not responding. Can you hear me? Hello? No? Am I in the Matrix?
Yeah. All right. There's one question I'm going to ask because I have to step away because my headphones died. But someone asked if there's anything that you would go back and change when it came to your relationship with Prince and something that you didn't do. And I'm going to be away from that while you answer that. But is there any regrets or anything that you wish you can go back and do over?
I'll
be back.
Okay, you'll be back.
Take me off screen, and I'll
be back. Hi, everybody. I'm going to take this opportunity to answer that question. One thing very in particular that I was thinking about during the short time after Prince passed away. He was Prince was when I joined, I was very young and green, and he knew that. As a matter of fact, when he called to ask me to join his band, I was naive enough to think that I could get another semester of college in during the fall before work would really take off. And I told him as much. I said, "Well, do you think I'll have time? Will I be able to squeeze another semester in at Augsburg Lutheran College?" And Prince started laughing so hard on the phone, and then he stopped and he said, I don't think you're going to have time for that. And that must have been some indication to him that I didn't really know what was going on. But another thing that I did kind of early on, we'd be flying out of town to go do something. And sometimes I'd ask him, I'd run into him in the hallway and say, "Oh, what time is that flight tomorrow? Did you what time do we have to be?" I'd ask him like questions about the itinerary or where we were going or how much time we had for. And the whole time he'd be looking in my face like, "Don't you understand? I'm Prince." I listen. I might not even be on the same plane as you. I like you have no. Why are you bothering me with this information? But he never once blew up. Like he pulled those punches because he really knew. He knew I was young and I didn't know nothing or nobody. Uh, and I never got to really thank him for being so merciful in those moments. I didn't really realize the magnitude of the situation I was in, and he was understanding. I mean, he may have been biting his tongue. You know, he might have had bite marks, but but he never once just went like, "Listen, stay out of my face with all that. Don't you understand that we are not? This is not. We're not peers here. I am your boss. I work on a different schedule. You don't know how much I have to accomplish. I'm not thinking about how you're getting to from point A to point B. I have somebody on staff to tell you that information. Get out of my face. He never did do that. He could have, but he never. He always forgave my ignorance um, in situations like that. However, if it was musical, the last thing you want to do is say sorry. The Fritz would say, "Don't be sorry. Be sure. Like know what you're doing." And he was right about that. And that's another lesson that has stayed with me through the entirety of my career. Everywhere I go, I want to be sure. I don't want to be sorry. You know. While the doctor is away, let me go ahead and scan these questions. Can you talk about the session you did before? Yeah, that was one take in Studio C at Paisley Park. Um, and I went as far out as I could. He was like, "That's great." So that was my experience with Foley in the studio. He's a he's a great musician and a great person, and I love him dearly. I wish I could work with him uh, again. Who knows? That may come. It may not. Uh, let's see. Yeah. I'm looking. Sorry. Um, I'm an old man. This is a good people. Yes, he was. Uh, can you tell us about Love to the Nine? How's that put together? Tediously. That was the longest tracking day of my life, I think. We were not only recorded Love to the Nines that day, but we also recorded Three Chains of Gold and Johnny, and from scratch, all of that. Johnny, well, actually, we had been playing that on the road on Act Two, but of course, it started with the beat, and we figured out he was like, I want this sort of rhythm, and we kept playing with him. So he said, yeah, I like that, and then he moved to the chorus. Like he was very methodical that day, but it took a long time because really? Is the sound muffled now here? Can y'all hear me? Somebody tell me you can hear me. I'm looking at the bottom of the comments. Can you guys hear me, or am I muffled? You can't hear what I'm trying to say. Somebody please make a comment. All right, it's muffled. I don't understand why that would be. Oh, I guess there's a storm coming through. My wife just told me. Or maybe I'm talking too loud. um, in any case, I hate it, Corey. Maybe I should do a shout out. I see you, Badra. Uh, what state is Minnesota at the moment? Oh, George Floyd trial. I don't know. I'm embarrassed to say I haven't been keeping up. I've just been too busy with some other things, April. Um, but yeah, I don't honestly know. Um, it got muffled after the doc dropped out. Move closer to the screen. I'm moving closer. No, you seem to be talking more direct. Okay. Uh, yeah. Wow. All right. Okay. Well, I'll just take this time out to shout out to a few people. I see you, Corey Eischen. I got you. Hi, Corey. Hi, Melissa Riley. Paige Smith. Hello. Uh, Mark Lee Pettiford. I'm still muffled. Sorry, I don't know what I can do about that. I think it's a matter of the weather, or it's a matter of what's happened with the doctor. With the doctor, maybe he's trying to fix it. All right, talking to speaker. I'm doing the best I can. Not great. Just muffle a little. Oh wow. Okay. Hi, doctor. Wow.
Keep going because I'm still having trouble being able to hear it. I'm sorry, man.
Yes, I was born and raised in Minneapolis. Yes.
Because I'm not hearing you.
Okay. I think
Go ahead with the questions. I'll be right back. Someone's asking, who would you have liked to have seen work with Prince?
Well, there was a couple of near misses. Levi and Prince talked about working with Terrence Trent D'Arby. But Levi said, Prince, we ought to do Terrence's next record. And Prince said, we're not going to give our sound away to him. So I would have liked to have seen it because I think that Terrence, or Sananda Maitreya, as he goes by now, I think it was great. I liked a lot of his records. I guess I would have liked to have seen a proper would have liked to seen him and Lenny Kravitz actually do something together. You know, maybe they did. Who never know? Who knows? But okay. Yeah. So those are two people I would have loved to have seen work with Prince. But I think that those are two people who are also very influenced by him. And yes, and so it could have been redundant. Who knows? I just would have liked to have seen it happen. How about Billy Williams, Patrice Corrigan, Smashing Pumpkins? Yeah, I don't know. I think they might be a little bit too similar in the way they work. Like they might have too many of the same sensibilities to really get along like that. Sometimes that happens. I imagine it would have happened between them. Did you get to say goodbye to Prince before he passed? Not really, no. And it bothers me. I really, and more so, I can say right now, with full honesty, that I didn't really know how much I loved him till he passed. Like I really, it really forced me into a place where I had to think about a lot of our time together, you know. And it breaks my heart that he died in an elevator by himself. I think the last thing he would have wanted to be, the last things he would have wanted to, he would have not have wanted to contemplate the idea of dying with nobody there. I mean, I'm never going to be able to emotionally handle that, really, if I'm just going to be honest. Corey Wong would have been awesome. Well, Corey certainly tried to get himself on the radar. And of course, that's, and as anybody should, Corey tried, but, and I guess I'm not saying anything else other than, there's a lot of guys who would have coveted a position to play rhythm guitar behind Prince. And I mean, that could have worked, but it just wasn't meant to pass. And Corey's doing fine for himself. Corey Wong, he's got his own identity, his own brand. And did you know John Blackwell? A little bit. He'd come through bunkers and sit in from time to time. When I met John Blackwell, he was playing with Cameo, and I was playing with Chaka Khan, and we were doing playing a triple bill in Indianapolis with Ann Nesby. And that was the first time I met John Blackwell. And the whole gig, Larry Blackman was yelling at him. And I felt so bad for him. and I thought he was sticking. His pocket was tight. He was, he had the aggression, but drumming behind a drummer who's a great drummer is not easy to do. And so, because they had a lot of very specific ideas about what worked and what doesn't. Larry Blackman played all the bass and all the drums on those Cameo records. So, and he, at some point, he sat down on the kit, and it was like, man, I mean, clearly John was a talented individual, but nobody's gonna play Cameo like Larry Blackman's gonna play Cameo. He was so aggressive and so gritty with it, and it's like, wow, okay, I got to hear the difference. But I think that John was going to do well for himself. I think almost no matter where he went, to be honest. I mean, he and Prince were fortunate to meet each other, and I think that Prince said to me once that Patti LaBelle was a little bit. He said that Patti LaBelle was a little upset that he had taken John away from her, and I said, "Did she say that?" He said, "No, but she had little ways of letting you know she was upset. Like I asked to borrow her hot sauce, and like she was like, "Oh, I just ran out," like she wouldn't let him. I was like, "Wow, all right." That's a funny story, But
now, speaking of funny stories, and thank you for being able, while I was having some audio issues, people want to know about Prince's funny side and if he ever pranked you at times. I know he told one story about you at the Conga room, but what other things did he show his funny side to or pranking you on?
I don't know. I mean, really, he didn't really play with me like that. I think because the physical repercussions could have gone not in his favor. So I wasn't really one that he pranked around too much with. Also, I don't see myself this way, but I come off like a very serious person. Apparently, I don't know that about me. Like I feel like I'm kind of a silly person, But a couple of times. And not often, because I gave Prince his proper respect as my employer and as my mentor. But sometimes when he joked around with me, it didn't go so well. We were at the I've got to remember the name of the club. It was in England, the Emporium, and the show at Wembley. I was using a new brand of drumsticks because somebody in the accounting department dropped the ball on the people who were on the company I was working with. So we were getting ready to leave and go on tour. I called Zildjian and they said, "Well, yeah, we can send you some sticks." I had never used their sticks before, but I knew I was going to run out. Right in the middle of the intro to Endorphin Machine, I hit the snare and the stick snaps in half. And Prince looked back like what just happened, And he knew that I didn't make mistakes often, and so the first thing he says to me when I get to the Emporium, he's like, laugh. He starts clowning me. I heard that tonight. I said, "Well, what did you hear?" He said, "You did I hear a snare drum go missing during the intro?" I said, "Yeah, and I didn't get into all the intricacies and what if. Prince never wanted to hear a bunch of excuses. I'm like, I'm using the brand of stick that I'm not used to, and I didn't know they were so fragile. And Prince continued to make light of my situation. And I remember moving a little closer to him and saying, "Whatever, man." And he backed up and was like, "Well, we're going to go on in about a half an hour." And he just kind of scurried away. So, I didn't mean to grandstand or be disrespectful, but I wasn't in the mood. I was making mistakes is something I didn't like to do, and so he made it worse for a minute, And we had very few moments like that. I was not I don't have the spirit of rebellion in me. My thought always was, if I don't like what's going on, I can go home.
Right.
Yeah.
Someone has this question. Do you have any cherished, aside from memories, obviously, do you have any cherished items given to you by Prince?
Yeah. I'm not going to get into it, though.
You don't have to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. We can go back to Diamonds and Pearls.
Okay.
Where after Graffiti Bridge, which was, although the critics, it was on a lot of critics' top 10 list for albums. The movie, not so much. So here it was, supposedly, now here's Diamonds and Pearls. Prince is considered out. He needs a huge hit. He needs all this stuff. And Diamonds and Pearls delivers. But also what you have is Get Off. The original version sounded a lot different than what was released later on. Not if it was Silky, can't remember his name right now, who made the remix. But the original version that was on the birthday vinyl for Get Off, it morphed into kind of like a faster speed by the time it was released. Was it him just messing around with it a little bit more, or how did that came to be? You know, Steve So Curly that did the remix, now that I remember it.
Yeah, he dropped an En Vogue sample in there, and either I or Prince, I still don't know which one of us it is, doing that shuffle beat. Because during that time, he'd call me in. Pete Levi would call me in, I'd play 8 bars, and they'd kick me back out. So I think that he was looking for the right way to present that song. I mean, I told Mobeen Azhar from the BBC, who came to town to ask, what do you think's in the vault? Like, what do you think that thing should be? I don't know if you've seen this interview, but he did a special on the BBC about Prince's vault. He came to my house and he interviewed me in my residence. And he asked me, what do you think's in there? I said, oh, is that from KRS-One? I did not know, Alyssa. Thank you for correcting me. I said, there's a lot of versions of songs that you already know that were inferior as far as Prince's standards went. Like, he didn't always get it right the first time. You know, there's a lot of remakes. Like, he would try a song over and over again in different ways. And as remix culture caught up with him, you know, he just started farming it out. I mean, he was doing it by himself, and in the 80s and whatnot. But he started wanting to work with people who had modern experience in doing it, and and so I think that Get Off was an experiment. Like, he knew there was a single in there somewhere, but it was moving too slow for the dance floor. But it was the right tempo for something else. So I think they found a real good balance. I don't think he just sent it to Steve so early. I think that there was a bit of a negotiation. There were steps in between. Because I don't know if the anvil snare was already in the programming or not. I don't remember. But you're talking about that vinyl version that was the white cover, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing it. But
bless you.
I don't think it. I may have heard it once or twice. But by the time I looked up, the graphic went gold and purple. And there were smiley faces, and I was like, what? Oh, is this the same song? I'll put it on. No, this is not the same song. All right. And that was, the real introduction into the world for the new power generation. I'd come home from bunkers and I'd be sitting in my mom and dad's front room, exhausted, and be channel surfing, and I'd see myself on MTV, like, and keep moving.
Now, speaking of MTV.
Sorry, I took a lot of naps at Paisley Park. You're darn right. A lot of times we couldn't leave. I'm sorry. I just needed to get that out.
No problem. I was going to get to that one. Now, introduction and MTV and that performance of Get Off at the MTV Video Music Awards. What are your memories from that, aside from the pants and the orgy that seemed to be going on around you?
I'm sorry. What are you asking me? What was my impression?
No, like that experience, because that's what Prince supposedly was out and about after Graffiti Bridge not doing so well at the box office. The reintroduction of Prince was Get Off, and of course that Video Music Awards performance.
Oh, sure. That was the real deal, yeah.
Now, how did it went off for you? Go ahead.
Oh, wow. I'll say, well, I guess I'll just tell you. We were the appropriate amount of nervous. I mean, anytime you're doing TV, you really don't want anything to go wrong. There's nothing live television, nothing you can do about it. So we were well rehearsed. We rehearsed at Paisley for, a few days before we went out to Los Angeles for it. We didn't know about the outfit until he cut across the prayer circle to leave the room, and his backside was visible. He came from like kind of the toiletry area of his dressing room and walked into the circle, face front. And after that, I think Alan Leeds opened the door and said, like in the movie, like, "Hey, it's time." And Prince cut through the circle out the door, and we all looked at each other like, he got his all right. And at the camera blocking with Dick Clark hanging around, he didn't wear it. Like, he wore just something else that was flawed. And I think also the dancers in those like body stockings, they kept it way more toned down during camera blocking. By the time we shot it, I mean, I couldn't say what was going on back there, but I heard a lot from the rest of the band who looked back. They're like, "Man, did you see so and so with the?" And then, oh, let me tell you what else. And I heard all the stories, but I was too focused on getting my camera time and smiling and mugging. So yeah. But I mean, if you make a video that looks like Caligula, you're gonna have to up it one when it comes time to go live. And nobody went more live than Prince did.
And you guys had no idea. And of course, he had Tony and Damon and Kirk, and they had to like cover him when you guys were doing that rehearsal. But of course, you didn't know about the outfit when they're going down on top of him.
No, but also to be fair, it was a sheer opaque material. He didn't have his naked buttocks out on TV. There was material in those spots. It's like the equivalent of like nude stocking material. So
it had that effect, though, the effect that he wanted.
That's all that matters. But I'll tell you what, and what I knew from where I was sitting when we shot it, I knew that the problem is Prince was so calculated and specific down to the last detail about most things. You rarely saw things go askew with him. But when he went to grab the microphone and his sleeve got caught, that was a wardrobe malfunction, and it blew his concentration. That performance could have been so much better. But when I look back at it, I see the anger on his face. Because he just touched it, but one of those, that material was like, there was space in it. And when he pulled his hand back, the mic moved and hit him in the mouth. And you can see the change on his face if you look hard enough. But where I was at, I was looking like, ooh, I knew it.
He recovered quite well, but yes.
He's Prince.
Yeah.
But he may have recovered on stage, but in his mind.
Oh, he was pissed.
Oh, man.
For sure.
Yeah.
I mean, by the end of it, that's not what we were talking about. So it worked. But yeah, he was pissed. And if I remember correctly, you guys recorded Arsenio, but Arsenio was actually recorded the day was recorded before the Video Music Awards performance, although it aired afterwards, correct?
I can't. I'm not.
I think it was recorded before, but you had, just as you said, is how you get everything so meticulous. Is like he knew. Let me bring that outfit to the Video Music Awards, and for Arsenio, we're gonna bring some different stuff. And the Arsenio performance, that was another thing that was smart because he had the entire episode dedicated towards himself, which was the first one to do that for late night television, even though he didn't do an interview and had Patti LaBelle do it. Because that's
I hate on that show was because it ruined our chances of doing a United States tour on that record. That's
Really?
one of my only regrets. We went back to his house in LA to watch the show, and it was incredible. We were watching it, and oh man, this is great. And I said, when do we go on? When do we tour the States? And Prince looked and said, we just did. We just played in front of 50 million people. And I was like, oh man, I don't get to tour the United States. And it was until Act One. That was the first time I got to really get out. I mean, we had gone to Australia and Japan and spent a lot of time in Europe and the UK. But I felt like the real glory was to come home. And I would speculate that he wanted to be sure by the time he toured the States that there wasn't going to be one empty seat in the house, because the Love Sexy tour was not a successful tour in the States. If I remember correctly, somebody said he lost $6 million on that tour.
They did lose money in the U.S., yes.
And some of the nights, that light configuration would hit corners of the auditorium, and there wouldn't be nobody there. I think Levi told me that. So they started covering a lot of seats in those venues. And I wanted to go to that show when he played. I think he played either the Met Center or the Civic Center here. But my friend couldn't get his dad's station wagon. So I didn't get to see Love Sexy. I never got to see Prince perform anytime before I joined the band. The first time I got to watch him perform, I was performing with him. So, yeah.
That's something else. Now, when it comes to it, when you did your first tour of the U.S., you guys hit L.A., and of course it was, you guys had to cancel it just because of his voice when you guys did an after show in the Bay Area. But it was right around.
I think the club was called DV8.
Yes.
Maybe not. Yeah.
No, and it's like with the LA shows, there was a little bit of tension more so going on because you had the Rodney King civil trial happening.
Oh boy.
Now, do you remember that and how it felt around that during those LA shows, especially the first one?
I mean, I'm sorry. Tell me the question one more time.
Because the LA Act One tour.
Yeah.
It was right around when the Rodney King civil trial verdict was supposed to be announced.
Sure.
There's a little bit of tension in the air, at least for us as fans. Did you guys feel that when you were playing the amphitheater and playing Glam Slam?
Probably a little bit, but I mean, when you enter Prince's world, a lot of stuff you got to leave behind. We weren't really staying up on current events. We were trying to be excellent and not lose our jobs. It was a very intense situation to be in. I mean, what I do remember was going out to LA for something with Prince, and I'm sitting in the hotel, and the news that Kurt Cobain had just killed himself came on. That I remember. But the Rodney King thing, I mean, you have to have laser focus when you're working with Prince. I just didn't have room to take it in.
Okay. Just interesting on that. And then another question I'm having. Yeah, definitely. Another question that someone had, they want to know what it was like practicing for Montreux 2009.
I was like Montreux 2009.
Right. So they're singing then.
I mean, unless they know something they're not supposed to, which was that we were supposed to.
Yeah, and then during it, Prince finding out about MJ's passing and locking himself for days in Paisley, while Sonny and Michael ultimately never made it to Montreux, and whether they have touched down on anything during that time period at all. Yes, people didn't know they were going to be part of Montreux 2009, but then, the passing of Michael, I guess, mixed that stuff up.
It didn't have that's not what mixed it all up. I mean, to be 100% honest, I felt like his surrounding staff at the time, I think one of two things happened. Either They didn't realize that we had been on that train before and that we were not newbies. And I don't think that to just spit it out, like they didn't really take care of us right. And it for me, it started to be an issue about money, but that was short lived. What I decided was that it was better for me to just respectfully decline than to get into some kind of argument with Prince about money. That's not my style. I wanted Prince to know that he could call me anytime, and all those times we recorded with him, we never asked for. Sonny and I went on the good faith that we would be compensated, and sometimes we were, and sometimes we weren't. But I mean, it all comes out in the wash. But that was a situation where what was being offered to us, I didn't feel was fair. If we got to play an entire 90 minutes, just me and Sonny and Prince at Montreux, and he stood to make a substantial amount more money to do it. I didn't feel like the figures were reflected correctly. So, and not only that, I got a schedule I'm keeping with Soul Asylum. I can only tell them, oh, I got to go out of town for so many times. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I got a job. I'm not really looking for a job, and he's trying to give me one. You know? So sure. I just had to, and the funny part was the guy that called me to try to talk me into it, who said, listen, if it's a money thing, we can talk about it. And I started to say something. I went, no. I know how Prince feels about people who get embroiled in battles with him over business. You know, and it's not uncommon to any other person in his position. It's like, oh, I see. It's about money. You know, and at that point, I'm opening myself up to an entire dialogue about all the years that we worked together, and how my life would have been different without him in it. Like, I could have opened myself up to a lot of scrutiny that would have made him and I both bitter. So I left it alone. I didn't want to do it. They were rehearsing other drummers at Paisley when Prince found out about MJ. Somebody walked in. Sonny was there. They were waiting on this drummer to show up. And and Prince just broke down.
Because he was supposed to play the Dakota that night. You know, it was the anniversary of Purple Rain. And I got like a little message like, hey, we're going to give you some news. I think it was Cindy Blackman, I think, was actually going to be part of it at that time. But it's interesting to hear of why Montreux 2009 that you weren't brought in for that. And yes, it was John Blackwell eventually. But of course, even with that, you had Cindy Blackman that was going to be part of that. And of course, that performance never happened at the Dakota that night. He canceled it when he heard of Michael's passing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I just found it interesting that, you know, the Montreux 2009 and then that taking place. Another interesting question I'm seeing. I know we're hitting like the 2 hour and 30-minute mark here, so I don't know.
My wife is playing games on her phone, but it's going to be time for me to call it pretty soon.
Okay.
Can I do something right quick?
Absolutely.
Can I do a quick sweep here? Yes, I remember the show in 1993 in Chicago, where Malcolm Jamal Warner came, and so did Buddy Miles. Buddy Miles brought one of Jimi Hendrix's guitars to the club for Prince to play. He opened the case, and Prince and Levi looked in it, and Prince was like, "No, I'm not touching Jimmy's guitar without his personal permission." That's like kissing his woman. I can't do that. And so Buddy took the guitar back home after he came up and sang them changes and something else. Malcolm jumped on stage. Yeah, I remember that night vividly because I was having a big fight with my ex-wife and still had to get on stage and play after all that nonsense. So, yeah, I remember it. Not for the right reasons, but definitely. Did Prince choose my outfits? Yeah, more or less. I mean, it was a collaboration between him and the wardrobe department and Helen Hyatt and Stacia Lang and everybody who kept us looking so colorful and eccentric. I'm sorry. What were you about to ask me, man?
Oh, for sure. Because I saw another question. Now, people were asking, did Maite really get along with the band at first, or was that just part of an act of going on that there was like conflict?
You know what? When I did that interview with that piece of pizza on my chest, I was being honest.
Okay.
And I'll say this, that I'll never be that honest on film again, because you don't know where people are going to end up. This ends up being the woman that he married. And yeah, that was not a strategic move on my own part. Not that I caught any. Prince just said, just tell the truth, just be honest, And at that time, my mind was on what we could do as a band. I didn't see what value she added, because I didn't know what their relationship was. I didn't know where things were going at that time. But shortly after that was when I heard Seven, when I heard the influence on the music, and all these CDs showed up in Studio A that were just music from Egypt, from Saudi Arabia. Like, he was really. I got the tie later. That interview was premature, and I would like to say, I like it to be stricken from the record, from every tablet and goblet. But yeah, I be careful. DNA Lounge. You're right. That was the name of that club, DNA, not DVA. I didn't hear somebody correct. What's the name of this club? DNA. DVA. All right, is what I thought they said. Sorry.
Now, someone wants to know, it's the Kurt Loder question, as I call it. Were you able to keep any of the outfits?
Oh, you know what? I mean, they gave us a chance to go through the road cases and take whatever we wanted. But a lot of those clothes had been, I mean, when you're sending stuff to the cleaners every night or every other night, clothes they get damaged. They none of it was really wearable at that point. So I think I may have taken one shirt, no hats, one shirt, maybe
no
one
hats.
I'm not sure. It might be in this closet. I don't know, but I'm not going rummaging.
That'll be for a future episode. Rummaging with Michael.
Rummaging, yeah.
Now, curious, because I know we will be letting you go soon, and you guys get in some last minute questions. We'll try to get to it, and you can maybe do a quick round. Now, when it came to the Exodus era, how did you come up with Tora Tora? Was it just a way of kind of screwing Warner Brothers, like, I'm not part of this album, but I am part of this album? What came up with the whole Tora Tora persona?
I'm not. I mean, I know that there's a movie called Tora Tora Tora, and it's about a sneak attack, I think, of the Japanese. I don't know if it's about Pearl Harbor or not, but I get the sense that he thought that he was, it had something to do with him being, in costume, and like an alter ego of sorts, and like I don't know, like it was some kind of a sneak attack, what we were doing at that time. That's my interpretation. I don't really know.
Okay, it's interesting. I've always been curious about that, just because it was another thing, especially when you're going from Prince to the symbol, and then you're going with the MPG, and now you're under Tora Tora. Just was interested about that. So,
who was Cherry? Cherry was about an actual person. Sorry.
No, let's go through that.
He told me, he's like, that song's about this girl who got killed in the hood. But he oh, hey, Martin Kimber, the Chi-Town. What's up, man? Like, it's kind of a true story, that song. But Prince changed the name to Rosanda after he found out, Chili from TLC, what her real name was. She came out and she hung out with us for a few days. And Prince said, he asked her, don't you own a pair of jeans or something? Like, you always got to just dress like that? But, she was a young person. So she was expecting Prince to maybe have some baggy wides on, like, not to be always looking like he's getting ready to go on stage. But that ain't Prince. Prince was ready every day, all day, You're welcome. I know it's night time, Diana Parker. I see you. You're welcome. So that's, Cherry Cherry is a true story.
Now, what? Go ahead.
No, I'm just looking. Would you spend the night
Yeah.
at Paisley Park? No, I would not. Ever talk about God with Prince? Maybe indirectly. And I mean, sure. I mean, if you're talking about music, you're talking about God anyway, because you're talking about creation. So, uh, yeah, I mean, but I mean, I think that I remember talking to Levi at one point. He said, "What you be thinking about when Prince is holding prayer meeting?" And I said, "I'm just focused on my Creator." He's like, "Yeah, me too. I don't want to dip into the wrong, you know. I don't want to be I need to know who I'm worshiping." He said Prince could be on the Prince might be on the he might be saying Heavenly Father in heaven, and he might be thinking, "Bless us, oh great beast, make us perfect like you." And like we don't know what his inner dialogue is. You're talking about somebody who had who liked to entertain dark forces. You know, I mean, I'm just being real now. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I'm just saying, if you know anything about Prince or his music, that he liked to dabble, and with what I cannot, I don't know, but you can feel it in the music. He liked to explore. So you know, when we were praying together, I definitely was. I knew who I was praying to. That's all I could really say. uh, are you sick of me yet, Doctor?
No, not at all. I know you're seeing some of the questions. Go ahead and answer them if you want.
What do you feel is Prince's best drumming on record? I really like the first Madhouse record. I think that another standout track to me is like Tambourine. I think there's some really great drumming going on that track. Let's see. I mean, there's a few more. I'm sure. Soft and Wet. I like his drumming on that. Yes, by the Family. I think he's drumming great there. So just a few. Badra. What do you wish you had been able to do? Just say thank you properly. And I was trying to explain while you were off camera how when I was early on at Paisley that I would bring questions to Prince that you're not supposed to bring to a superstar. I'd ask about like the flight itinerary and what we were going to do, and he would look at me like, "Do you have any idea who you're speaking to?" Like, I'm not. I'm riding the Concorde to Europe. You're not. I'm not even flying the same day as you. Why are you asking me these questions? But instead, he just say, "I don't know. You should probably ask Therese." And he sent me to Therese. And after a while, I figured it out. I'm like, wow, it must have taken a lot of restraint for him not to just completely just go straight off, But and I never did get to thank him for accommodating, my greenness and my naivete, because that had to frustrate him on some level. But I just didn't know where I was at. How could I? I'm living in a city where nothing happens, So I tell people, like, "What was it like?" I'm like, "We rehearsed in a cornfield for days on end. That's what it was like." So that's one thing I never got to do, And around the time that Maite's book came out, I know she caught a lot of static for it, And I want to say I want to thank her for. I sent her an email expressing my support because that's her story to tell too. And I know a lot of people got mad, and they can get mad at this if they want. Wouldn't be the first time for me. I'm a known button pusher. But so I sent her that. I'm in your corner. I support that. It's not good to keep everything you've lived through on the inside like that. Let it out. Have your catharsis. And those people didn't have to buy that book. If they were against it, they should have kept their money. But in the email she wrote back to me, she said, because I think I told her, I said I didn't really know how I felt about him, until he was gone. And she said in her email back to me that I can tell you that he loved you a lot. That he really loved you, and it was nice to get that confirmation. I mean, he showed it in many ways that were cryptic. I may have not picked up on it because he was not really that type of dude generally. But so she gave me a bit of catharsis myself. She gave a little to me that day.
And someone's asking, what were some of your favorite drum solos? They love gold. But what are some of your favorite drum solos that you were able to do recording?
Oh, I don't know. It was always aggravating. Prince was always pushing me to do more than I wanted. So, it's like I'm not that guy. I don't play for the sake of self-glory. I play to improve the music. I cooperate. I like to be a part of things. I like to move things along in a positive direction. But he would always, I read somewhere that Lisa Coleman had the same sort of issue. He was always pushing her to like kind of go out, be virtuosic. And she didn't care to. But do I keep in touch with Miko? I wish I kept in touch with Miko. He was a great friend to me on that first tour, on the new tour. I really enjoyed spending time with him. He was funny. He was engaging. He taught me a lot. He taught me how to really respect Prince's audience, because early on, I'm just in my young mind, just doing whatever I'm doing, and people are asking. I'm staying away from fans, and I'm not signing albums because I didn't play on that. Why do you want my autograph? And Miko finally said, "Hey man, you need to change your attitude towards all this. Like, this is for them. This ain't for you. Like, these fans, they're loyal, man. And they'll follow you wherever you go from this point. So, be mindful of that." Like, Levi and Miko, they gave me a lot of real advice. They hazed me too because I was a young one around, but but they gave me a lot. They gave me a lot. It was almost like being in the army. You just went where they went. Like, any time to do something, I see them get up and go, I just go. Like whatever. It's like on an army base. It's how do you find out where the commissary's at? Just follow the group, the crowd. So they did a lot to groom me for that experience.
Now, speaking of Groovy Potential on Hit and Run Phase 2, that's you uncredited on drums, isn't it?
Yeah, he was kind enough to let me know he recycled my drum track. I'm like, you could have called me. I just live up the road. I live about 15 minutes away from Paisley Park. That's why it was so easy for us to get there and do things, But can you share the spat that Prince and Miko got into that rehearsal? I thought it was documented. If they know there was a spat, how did they not know what it was about? Can you not tell? Do you know, Doctor?
I've seen the video. We should have Miko on, and we can have Miko tell his side of the story.
Yeah, I think that's his story to tell, isn't it? Okay,
Right.
We'll leave that alone.
But yeah, the reason I knew about Groovy Potential is Chris James, one of the engineers, hit me up on that, saying that he loved your groove and tones on it.
Oh, so. Well, your groove is kind of like your face. It's just, that's what you got. You work with it. So
totally.
We couldn't he couldn't hear the dialogue going on the tape. Long story short, I don't know what the real beef was about, but at some point, we were I think it was in the middle of Kiss. Miko stopped to move a tone knob or something. Like, he checked something on his guitar. He stopped playing and stopped moving. Like, they were in the middle of like a move, like a choreographed thing that was happening there. So Prince noticed both, and when we stopped, Prince said something to Miko about it. And I don't think it was really even about what was happening there. They could have been fighting over some girl. Who knows? Really. But it escalated quickly. The Prince, yelling at Miko, and Miko, telling him, come out, Like, come outside. Prince was like, I tell you limb for limb. You don't know who and Miko was just saying, I'm not going to sock you on your own property. You think I'm stupid? We can go across the street to the Glens and we can box there. And it was just, a yelling match. And Miko left the room and Prince left the room, I think. And me and Rosie and Sonny and, not Sonny, Levi and Fink were just kind of, all right, well, that's probably it for today. So I don't think we went back to rehearsal that day. I think what I heard was Miko went to the hotel he was staying at and started packing, and that Prince called him and they made up. But yeah, I mean I'm just looking. I'm like, Miko is like 6'3". Prince, what you gonna do? He had a mean bark. He was hollering, son. If you ever, like, and Miko was just walking away like, yeah, I hear all that talking. You don't really want none of this. And he just headed out of the soundstage. No, I was not blown away, Badra, because I've seen Prince do incredible things, and no cameras were running. That may have been incredible, but because of what I think took away from it was the agenda, the Hall of Fame solo. Like, he set out to make a mark that he didn't really have to. Like, I felt like he was pushing it. Like, that was a bridge too far to me. Like, don't do that. Like, you're great already. Like, you don't let these critics, and don't let the fact that every time Rolling Stone comes out with a issue about the 100 greatest guitar players and they completely snub you, like, don't let that control you. Like, I really think he did that to get even in a weird way. But like, you're playing all mean in front of George Harrison's son, and that kid doesn't know what to do. He ain't done nothing to you, Prince. Why are you going after him so mean? Tom Petty's standing there looking confused. I just don't feel like. I mean, honestly, what I'm feeling right now about my impression about it was that he showed a weakness in that moment, because he felt like he had to go that far to prove a point. I'm like, you're Prince. He should have felt the way Eric Clapton felt the way about him. Somebody asked Eric Clapton, how's it feel to be the greatest guitar player in the world? He said, I don't know, ask Prince. That should have been enough for Prince. He shouldn't have had to go on TV and make an example of white people's greatest legends. Like, he didn't have to do that. He did it. And, he shut a lot of people up with it. But me, I'll tell you what I'd take over that, Badra. I'd take the solo he played on the Trojan Horse bootleg on Raven to the Joy Fantastic. First time I heard that, my neck snapped. I didn't know Prince could play like that. That was the true testament. Prince shouldn't have to prove himself to nobody. He should be doing it all for his creator. And I felt like that was a misstep on that Hall of Fame. Like, he was pandering. Like, you're above that. You didn't need to do that. You already Prince. You got more hits than anybody standing on this stage. You don't have to do it. So that's my feeling. You can disagree.
Interesting. Those people in on it.
All right, what do you got for me?
Yes. Guys, of course, they're talking about that. The Hall of Fame rehearsal, looking at other things. Regardless, there's just so much we can go on for. I don't want to slam anything into it. I'm trying to make sure that if anyone has any questions, we have it. Yes. Now, did you ever take it as a diss at all during Old School Company, where he name checks you at the end, but he goes, now they're just bland like the drummer? Because I know that Candy, No More Candy for You was not a thing for Candy Dolfer, but Alan Leeds took it as such, and Prince was upset by it. When it came to your name check of now they're just bland like the drummer, what did you think of that?
First off, by the time I heard about it, it was probably a year and a half after. I mean, I don't listen to. I go through phases where I listen to Prince, but usually when I'm listening, it's something old. Like, it takes me back to when I first discovered his music. Like that's the place I kind of like to sit with it. If I listen to the era where I played, then I get critical about things I can't control. Any mistakes I made or decisions I made that I wish I did something different, then it becomes just an analysis of my own performance. So I don't listen to a lot of the music that I made with Prince. And I guess, to be perfectly honest, the last record I really paid attention to was probably Musicology. Like, I think I might have even had it at some point, but I knew about. I think I probably listened to Raven to the Joy Fantastic. I think the point where it became something I wasn't interested in was on the new Power Solo record, which I know a lot of people like, but for me, I was just like, he's on a different journey now. He's not making this music for somebody like me, and that's fine. He didn't have to. So I'm saying I don't keep a lot of those records around. I never heard this song. Groovy Potential is just a myth in my mind. But I wouldn't take it. I don't feel like it was a diss. I don't know, but he probably had a lot less kind things to say about me over the years. You know, I don't care. He's Prince. He can say what he wants, and I'm me, and I can say what I want. So, what you know, it's a free country. Not, but
yeah. I mean, Prince would talk mess about everyone. I'm sure he said stuff about me, but it's all good. You know, you just gotta take it as such. He liked to talk. That's all. So
yeah, I mean, for anybody who has questions they really want to bring to me, is it okay if I redirect them to my Facebook page? They can catch up with me there.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty good about responding if you inbox me. So yeah, hit me up. I mean, I'll ask anything I feel is within reason. I mean, I'll answer anything I feel is within reason. I don't want to speculate too much, but I'll give you facts, and I'll share what I can.
And I always appreciate it when, like, on the Funkenberry fan page or my private page, where you chime in with information that we don't know. I always love that, you know. So
yeah, I mean, I try to be helpful because there's a lot of questions, and I realized I spent time in a world that was off limits to most people. Most people will never be able to say they were where I was at doing what I was doing, and I know it was a unique thing to be a part of, and it was just as incredible to watch from the outside as it was to be a participant. So I feel like I can, dispel a lot of rumors and explain a lot of technical things that happen, and give, an accurate reading rather than speculation is not my thing, but I can, a lot of facts I recall. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that's my invitation to all y'all. Get at me if you want. Sorry.
Yes. No. Like, we're going to be putting it on there for sure. We'll make sure when we add this on that we give your Facebook page that you want them directed to as well. Now people are wanting you to write a book as well. But we'll see. Yeah, that's
how somebody come out with a book, y'all go haywire. Y'all ain't gonna roast me on the spit like that.
Mm-hmm. There'll be other things. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to do this. Thanks to Mike Fago, thanks to Heidi Vader for making these things happen. But I appreciate you, Michael, so much for doing this.
You're welcome. It's funny because I had to decide. I was turning down a lot of interviews. I was going through a phase before COVID, and now it's like, why not? I got the time. What am I doing? So I'm happy to talk, man. I'm hoping you got something out of it. I'm hoping I didn't, douse your spirits or make you feel some kind of way you don't want to feel about Prince. But if you want the truth, I'm the one to come to. I'm not going to, I'm not going to weave yarns. I'm just going to tell you what happened.
No, we'll definitely have to have you back on again for sure.
Okay, maybe not 3 hours next time, but I mean.
No. I apologize.
Man, I did more talking than you did. So.
That's what I like, though. Set
All
up the
right.
questions and you tell the stories.
Well, ask me back, and we'll chop it up a little bit more. Don't
Definitely.
yeah. Feel free to get at me, doctor. All right.
I appreciate it, Michael. You have a good night. Thank your
You
wife
too.
for her patience as well.
God bless y'all.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. We are going to do a quick after show just to get on. Even though it's been 3 hours, I think you guys want to make sure to have it just because there's some questions like always Rosie is asked about. We have talked to her daughter before. She's doing as well as she can be. Of course, we would love to have her on the show. It just isn't happening. But we'll probably have to get her daughter back on and other things. But that always happens. There was like the link it's a longer link than usual. I'll put it up again. You guys want to donate, but I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break. I will be coming back for a short after show just to get more questions so we leave stuff like this. Thank you guys so much again for subscribing on YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Apple Music, listening on Spotify. I appreciate it. Give me like 5 to 10 minutes. Why is Siri trying to jump in on this? Give me about 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll be back on for a quick after show and to talk about whatever you want. Thank you guys so much. Again, this show is your show. So you guys made this a great show along with Michael, with your questions being asked and you guys contributing. And we're going to keep that going and talk more about what we talked about on last Wednesday's after show with Kat Dyson. All right. Be right back. Much love. Till next time, which will be short. Keep it funky.